Okay, we're going to get started on the record. Good evening. This is a public comment hearing for EFSB 25-08 for the Hillman Energy Center LLC's proposed Tewksbury Battery Energy Storage System project. My name is Donna Sharkey. I'm a presiding officer with the Siting Division of the Energy Facilities Siting Board, and I will be in charge of conducting the hearing this evening. The Siting Division is the support staff to the Siting Board, the agency charged with reviewing large proposed energy projects in Massachusetts. I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening's hybrid public comment hearing regarding the project proposed for a battery energy storage project to be located at 73 to 75 Hillman Street in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. I will refer to the petitioner as the company, and I will refer to the proposed battery energy storage facility, proposed new substation, and the proposed transmission interconnection as the project. Okay. This proposed project has been docketed by the Siting Board as EFSB 2508. I am joined this evening by Andrew Green, Director of the Siting Division, Joan Foster Evans, General Counsel of the Siting Board, Wayne Wong, Assistant Director of the Siting Division, Timothy Riley, a Senior Siting Analyst, and Nathaniel Strasberg, another Siting Analyst. My colleagues and I are here this evening to listen to comments and questions from you, and if appropriate, to facilitate responses to them from the company. Please note that this hybrid public comment hearing is being live streamed and is being recorded for our YouTube channel. The video of the hearing will be available for viewing on our YouTube channel. You will also note that we have a stenographer at this public comment hearing who will transcribe the official record of this hearing. If you are having any technical difficulty with Zoom, please call or text 857-200-0065 for assistance. Please pay attention to my video during the course of the public comment hearing and stop speaking if I raise my hand. I will do so if we have a technical issue or if I need to interrupt a speaker to ask them to slow down or speak up to ensure that we are capturing everything correctly for the record. The company proposes to construct the battery energy storage project on 2 parcels of land at 73 and 75 Hillman Street in Tewksbury, known as the BEST site. The site is bounded by Hillman Street to the south, high voltage power lines to the west, railroad tracks to the north, and Clinton Street to the east. Generally, land uses surrounding the BEST site include existing electric transmission corridors and related infrastructure, extensive wetland areas to the north and west, and commercial and industrial development to the east and south. At the 73 Hillman Street parcel, approximately 3.8 acres is currently developed with an existing landscaping business and a truck repair shop. The remaining 0.25 acres of this parcel consists of an isolated vegetated wetland. The 75 Hillman Street parcel is approximately 0.29 acres in size, contains equipment storage and other industrial uses, and is entirely developed. The project proposes installation of 169 BEST modules, consisting of lithium-ion batteries housed in above-ground storage cabinets and transformers on concrete slabs on approximately 4.3 acres at the BEST site. The project would include a new electric substation at the BEST site. The project also includes a transmission line to interconnect the BESS with the electric grid. The majority of the transmission interconnection, or approximately 1,025 feet, will be underground, with the remaining 175 feet of transmission line placed overhead. The proposed transmission interconnection line would extend approximately 1,200 feet in total and traverse 4 separate parcels owned by National Grid and an additional parcel owned by the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. The description of the proposed project is set forth in the notice that was distributed by mail to abutters in the vicinity of the project and published in the Lowell Sun and the Town Crier newspapers. Council and company representatives for the company will make a presentation regarding the project. I will then invite the public, both those in person and those on Zoom or telephone, to comment or ask questions. As appropriate, I will ask company representatives to respond to the questions as we go. For those of you participating by using Zoom or telephone, you will have a full opportunity to see and hear everything said during the hearing and to offer comments and ask questions. Participation instructions are in the notice of this public comment hearing that was published in the newspapers and mailed to addresses near the project. The notice for tonight's hearing is posted on the Siding Board's project web page and the company's project website. The notice has links to obtain additional information. The public comment hearing tonight marks the beginning of a formal state-level decision-making process focused on whether to approve the project. In reviewing the project, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3, the Siding Board will determine whether to exempt the project from zoning requirements of the town of Tewksbury based on whether the present or proposed use of the land or structures is reasonably necessary for the convenience or welfare of the public. There are multiple ways that you can participate in the Siding Board's review of the project. In addition to commenting on the project tonight, you may file written comments by Friday, October 24th, 2025, by email to me and to the DPU e-filing email address in the notice, and to the project council, whose address is also listed in the notice. After tonight's hearings, you may choose to seek participation as an intervener or a limited participant in the proceeding. The deadline for requesting participation as an intervener or a limited participant is Friday, October 24th, 2025. For example, you may participate as a full intervener. A full intervener has rights to ask discovery questions of the company, to present witnesses, to ask questions of witnesses testifying at the hearings, to file briefs and motions, and to appeal the decision of the Siding Board. In the alternative, you may participate as a limited participant, which would allow you to receive filings made in this proceeding and file briefs with the Siding Board. A limited participant does not have the right to appeal the decision. Information on participation is published on the Siding Board webpage, which outlines the different ways in which you can participate in our proceedings and what you must do to request participation. The information on participation is also in the public comment hearing notice for this proceeding. We would encourage anyone who does seek to participate to review the material that we provided in the Siding Board Handbook and the Siding Board Regulations. If you would like a copy of the Notice and Intervention Rules, please send your contact information to my email, and I can send the information to you by email. Next, I will ask the company to make a presentation regarding the project. It's in the notice. After that presentation, I will open the floor to comments and questions from members of the public. The project's legal counsel and its representatives are participating in this public comment hearing. Would legal counsel for the company please introduce themselves and note their appearances for the record?
Good evening, Madam Presiding Officer. On behalf of Hillman Energy Center, my name is Andrew Kaplan. I am with the law firm of Pierce Atwood, 100 Summer Street, Boston, 02110.
Thank you. I'd like to note for the record, the company provided its certification that it has distributed the notice for this public comment hearing in the manner the Siting Board required. Would the company like to do a presentation regarding the project? After its presentation, we will open the floor for comments and questions from the public.
The company would like to do a presentation, and speaking on behalf of the company tonight is Tyler Rinn. Tyler is the project developer for Hillman Energy Center.
Presentation. Here, he's got one.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Siting Board for considering this application, and thank you all for coming out to speak this evening. I'm excited to hear from everybody, thoughts, questions, concerns, and hopefully answer some of your questions. My name is Tyler Rinn. I'm the project developer with East Point Energy, representing Hillman Energy Center this evening. Hillman Energy Center is a 125 megawatt battery storage facility located at 75 and 73 Hillman Street, located near the Great Swamp and the National Grid substation just north of Main Street in downtown Tewksbury. We are here this evening to request an exemption from the local bylaws, the zoning bylaws, and to construct a 125 megawatt, 500 megawatt hour standalone battery storage facility. The project will also include a 1,200-foot transmission line crossing 4 parcels, 4 of which 3 parcels are owned by National Grid and 1 is owned by the MBTA. Here you can see an aerial rendering of the battery storage facility. On the south there is Hillman Street, and on the east is Clinton Street. You can see the sound walls on the southern portion and the eastern portion, and all of the BESS units and inverters on the site. On the north of the site, you can see the collector substation, which will take the power from those batteries and transmit it over to the National Grid substation, which was seen in the previous photo. I know there are going to be a lot of questions this evening around environmental impact of a project of this type, and quickly wanted just to run through some of those impacts and mitigations that the company is taking. First, air emissions. There are no air emissions during operation. That's because it just sits there like a substation. Stormwater is going to meet or exceed all of the Mass DEP stormwater standards. Wetlands, there are no direct impacts to wetlands or vegetated wetlands along the project site. We are in a buffer zone, which the local conservation committee has jurisdiction over, but there are no direct impacts to wetlands. Of those buffer zones, we are meeting all state and local performance standards for those wetland resource areas. Noise, I'm sure, is a large concern here this evening. Massachusetts DEP has a stringent noise policy that the project will adhere to through low noise equipment, sound attenuation barriers, and operating restrictions at night. Solid and hazardous waste release. There is no hazardous or solid waste as a part of this project. Cultural resources. We have done a cultural resource analysis and consulted with the Mass Historical Commission, and they have indicated that there are no Mass Historical cultural issues or resources in the vicinity of the site. And then finally, traffic. Once operational, there will be no traffic at the site. There will be about 1 vehicle per day at the maximum for kind of normal maintenance and things like that. Fire safety is obviously another large concern, so I just wanted to quickly run through this and then happy to answer more questions later. This site will be 24/7, 365 days a year monitored by somebody watching screens, analyzing what is happening at the facility, and making sure that it is operating correctly. Those staff that are monitoring those facilities can shut down any sort of battery or units that are not operating correctly. These batteries also include thermal management systems inside of the containers that meet all of the industry standards around testing and safety. We also have to adhere to countless codes and standards, the main ones being the NFPA 855 standard for the installation of energy storage systems. This is codified in the Massachusetts Fire Code and regulates how these battery facilities have to be operated, maintained, decommissioned, all of that. As a part of that, there is also UL 9540 and UL 9540A, which are regulatory testing that we have to go through, where they test what happens to batteries when they are exposed to fire and catch on fire, what happens for propagation and all of that, and it makes sure that if a battery does catch on fire, it doesn't propagate to its neighbors. Finally, as a part of NFPA 855, there's also a requirement for annual fire training with the fire department. We've already met with them on numerous occasions to discuss the emergency response plan that we are developing as a part of this property and this project, and plan to continue that partnership throughout the life of this project. That's it for the presentation. I wanted to make sure there was time for everybody to speak, answer questions. So I look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will proceed with public comment regarding the project. We begin with federal, state, and local officials, appointed as well as elected, who wish to be heard. Then we will proceed with the members of the public who have signed up to speak in the order in which they have signed up. Finally, we will allow anyone who wishes to speak but did not have the chance to let us know in advance to speak. If you are participating remotely and I call upon you to speak, we will move you into the Zoom panel so that you can be seen and heard by the Zoom audience as well as those here in the auditorium. For all speakers, please give your name and address, spell your name, and speak slowly and clearly. Please stop speaking if you see me raise my hand. If a company responds to a comment or question asked as appropriate, I will ask the company to respond. Do we have any federal officials present or on Zoom that wish to comment? Are there any state officials present or on Zoom that wish to comment? I believe Representative Robertson is here and would like an opportunity to speak.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Citing Board. I'd like to note tonight I'm joined with, I'm sorry, can folks hear me? Y'all got to become taller. I'd like to note tonight that I'm joined by Mr. Vitale of Rep. Howard's office. She's trying to make her way right now. Her hearing got held up, and if any of you came from the greater Boston area right now, you understand the struggle. But since I don't wish to hold up the good members of Tewksbury tonight, I'm going to read some remarks on behalf of her and I'll clarify which ones are just myself, and when she arrives, or she'll follow up with her own testimony to further clarify. But Mr. Vitale is going to be here with me because he was also instrumental working with Rep. Howard and myself in capturing some of the concerns that we shared, I have, and that also that those members of the general public have. There's nothing quite a politician loves more than talking about themselves a little bit. So to give you context about myself, I have been a member of the Energy and Telecom, Utility and Energy Committee since I was first elected. It's something I specifically asked for along with appointment to Environmental Affairs. I say that to give you my empathy and understanding your struggle in ensuring that we balance the protections of our local residents while also providing a clean and affordable grid and electrical availability to those that need to utilize it here in the Commonwealth. I also tell you that to give you the context of the lens that I'm approaching it through, that even though I myself, as part of my duties as state representative, try to move the Commonwealth towards a more cleaner, sustainable grid, I cannot agree with the conclusion that Site 1, which is being chosen as the preferred applicant site, meets the safety and preservation of the neighborhood characteristics. So when this was first proposed, Representative Howard and I met with folks at Emerald Court, surrounding streets in the neighborhood, Tewksbury at large, and please don't panic, I'm not going to read all 12 pages, but we consolidated the majority of these complaints into several categories and overarching kind of subjects. They boil down to essentially environmental sensitivity, particularly around that of the neighboring Great Swamp, which we sustained within our research from going back to 2003. We suspect that it goes back further, this concern, both from the municipality and discussions with applicants that came forward, as well as residents during town meeting during zoning and environmental protection discussion. But as I said, 2003 is where I found still available data that we were going to provide to you electronically going that far back. You'll also find out we split it into noise and light disturbances as relative to other recently approved zoning and other approved projects within the neighborhood. And then questions about fire, and then also questions about the local infrastructure around that's able to support. So again, please don't panic. I'm not going to read all 12 pages. I'm just going to take the next 3 to 5 minutes to describe what you're going to hear from testimony from the folks in this audience. We have captured a number of specific stories, not all of them, but I don't want to hold up the good folks here tonight sharing their opinions and their concerns. But again, these will be reflected in the letter that we will bring to you. So to begin with, one of the questions that we had, both as the state delegation and as well on behalf of the local residents, is precisely who is the power being shared with? As your mission here is to help guide and decide whether these projects for the benefit of the public at large. One of the things that we uncovered during our research is that there tends to be a reliance of these battery energy storage systems in entering a private power purchase agreement of sorts. So that was one of our large concerns, is that, yes, compared to other types of energy producing facilities, a BESS is cleaner. It might have some advantages on dispatchability and be able to connect to the grid and emit that energy. But is that energy going to the public at large? And is it meeting that threshold that you're examining today, whether or not it's going to bring utility, by the way of utility, to the people of Tewksbury and the greater area? We haven't been able to discern whether this electricity will be reserved for private use elsewhere or the public's benefit at large. And that's one of the questions that we'd like the siting board to explore with the applicant to ensure that any of these, and again, myself and most people in this room say no to the preferred site, but if they were to choose an alternative, it's one of the things that even if an alternative was chosen, we like to make sure that this is just another benefit for one specific private company elsewhere, but for all residents in the community at large. Moving on, for the noise and light impact, as you know right now, the current use is a truck repair facility and a landscape company. It has loud and noisy operation, and the applicants will talk about how their noise and such is in alignment. That is true to an extent. The difference here, and it's a subtle difference, but it's an important one, is that the current use is more limited to your typical commercial and industrial hours. I'm not going to say it's exactly 9 to 5, and I understand during wintertime, landscaping might run a little earlier or later because they typically get involved in snow removal. But it is a much different sort of, and I'm going to use Gen Z lingo here, a different vibe of business as compared to what the applicant is. So even though that the noise and light mitigation may occur, that's because the hours and the degree of the noise and light which are going to be occurring as opposed to the current use is that much different. That also sort of ties into other things, which is a step in the right direction as the applicant described. But even though, and this is my subtle but important distinction. Is it the best use? Right now, what they're arguing is it is a better use of the current site. But I want to highlight, is it the best use? Because, as I'm going to explain here, the neighboring Great Swamp has been the subject for the last few decades, both in the community as a subject of zoning and environmental protection. Essentially, Hillman is located off of Old Boston Road, which is adjacent off of Main Street. And over the last few decades, even before I was here on this earth, that neighborhood's development has changed. As you can see on the map, the Great Swamp and surrounding areas are industrial. But if you and I took a ride down Main Street right now, you would see that despite being zoned industrial, the most industrial-esque development that's found in that neighborhood outside of the applicant's immediate neighbors is a used storage warehouse. It has industrial aesthetics, but it is a commercial venture. Everything else that's been developed in the community since 2006, which was a big turning point in development in that area, has been a dense residential, single-family, or commercial focus. I personally believe, and I'm not stating that this was the reason that the local officials and my predecessors in the state level chose when making these decisions, but this was a reaction to studies undertaken by the town in the 90s and 2000s that showed dense development and industrial development directly adjacent to the Great Swamp was causing hydrological issues elsewhere in the town. Now, the Great Swamp expands, it's the largest sole contributor to the 20% of the surface area in Tewksbury that's a wetland. It falls in between 4 watersheds for a river, including directly discharging into the Merrimack, and on the other side, the Heathbrook into one of our aquifers. Even though the applicant's chosen site is isolated from elsewhere, it is essentially one water entity. At times, it might be a little dry, but underneath it's all interconnected. Now, the applicant admittedly has less non-permeable surface and chemical use during the current site. But the trend that local and state officials have been working towards in development around the Great Swamp, be it towards individual applicants or our general infrastructure, has been moving to protect the environmental status and undo the damages of the development of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s before they started wising up and adopting more modern. So, of course, we as public officials cannot tell the private market what to do. But my personal opinion, and I'm sure it's shared by many in the audience, is that a quieter residential or commercial use, or even open space preservation, given the industrial abuse that historically occurred on the property, is a more fitting type of development for the town to decide on moving forward. And again, it's through no fault of the applicant there that this was the historical precedent, but we're trying to clean it up now. And again, as I reiterate, the town was aware of this, and we're going to provide you with the actual study that occurred back in 2003, which explicitly suggested to the town that in the area of the Hillman neighborhoods and anything adjacent to the Great Swamp, that Tewksbury with utmost priority institute additional bylaws protecting that due to the ecological damaging that we were witnessing at the time. And I can tell you personally, as state representative, and there's some members of the select board here tonight, they've reached out to address flooding along Route 38. And I don't want to represent my opinion as theirs, but just as an example that this is still an ongoing issue now, in that this is from, again, not the applicant, but the previous development of the Hillman neighborhood. So I'm not a mind reader, but the trend of local development in that neighborhood has not been towards heavy industrial or utility grade noise and pollution. It has been simple warehousing, occasional engine repair, and to be honest, the landscaper is probably the most industrial process going on there. So despite at first glance looking like this was a specific neighborhood cordoned off for intentional industrial development, it is not. The other big thing that you'll hear tonight, as I'm sure you have heard at many of these, is our concerns around the fire safety in the case of a mass casualty or mass evacuation incident. This was a bit flustering, and I'm joined by now my aide, Ian Hatfield. These two gentlemen and Rep. Howard made sure that I wasn't going blind, because we, as we prepared, went back and took a look at the previous presentations that were put forth before your board. And on the Streamfield site in Westfield, we found 3 documents, all over 35 pages, that discuss things such as evacuation plans for the fire department, the burn rate of a cell versus a series of batteries versus a rack of batteries. And I know that we heard tonight that they're compliant with the Underwriter Lab 9540, the 9540A. I'm sure they have the off gas and the vents and all that such lined up. But the fire portion, despite us being able to fill several pages with questions, was at times a fruitless adventure because we simply were not able to locate the resources associated with the Hillman proposal that folks like you saw that were attached to proposals like this Streamfield proposal out in Westfield. Okay, we found 3 documents there outlining the plans in case of an evacuation, in case of a fire outbreak, what the equipment was. And so we ask, as we move forward tonight, where can we find such information and where can we find things like the third-party review on, God forbid if this facility caught fire, on what the smoke plumage and such would be. But simply right now, and I'm willing to be embarrassed and have egg on my face, but I haven't been able to unlocate anything of substance that allows me to compare and ask the siting board and the applicant the concerns of the citizens in a way that is much more precise. So I know October 24th is coming up rapidly, and we're actually planning, Representative Howard and I have already discussed, expanding this letter once that information is made available. But you'll notice in the 12 pages that we're turning in, it's a bit anemic, I'm sure, compared to other testimony you solicited from officials, simply because I don't have the information to make that argument, which I think is problematic in and of itself at first. The other concern that we had and that many of the residents shared, and this is the last topic, I'll wrap up and let them get at you, but the local road service and condition. I know that this facility will most likely be roboticized, but I urge you, if you haven't, go down and take a look at the neighborhood. As I said before, Route 38 now has truncated that portion of Old Boston Road. It was a quieter neighborhood with single-family homes until the mid-2000s. And then a few multifamily developments occurred. But it's all residential, single-car traffic. And if you go back and you find yourself amongst the heavy industrial overlay and the businesses immediately adjacent to the applicant's parcel, the largest vehicle you're going to find down there is a 15-foot box truck for the party rental place. There's nothing with articulated beds. There's nothing with booms. There's nothing that we would consider even seeing common at a construction site. Their F-350 is probably one of the largest vehicles to go up and down the road that day. The reason that I urge you to go down is that even the construction phase has concerned us with road capacity. Because once you leave Hillman in the neighborhood, to get back on Route 38, and you can ask anyone in this audience, there are dozens of near misses a day. And those intersections, despite great efforts from our local officials to pressure the state, despite the delegation earmarking millions of dollars over the last several terms to improve Route 38, we're constantly being outpaced with growth elsewhere. So I understand we cannot tell people when and where not to drive. That's part of their freedom of movement. That said, creating this as a destination in the end for heavy vehicles, even during construction, is going to have downstream road impacts here, which we as a community have been fighting tooth and nail to get the state to notice and improve upon with varying degrees of success. So, as I mentioned, I wrap up so that folks here can substantiate everything I said with their own stories and comments. We'll be distributing to you each a copy of the physical letter, and then we'll be sending you all the things that you'll see cited in here electronically. I'm sorry, I just don't want to burden you with 100 some odd pages. But I ask you kindly tonight, as you listen to the residents, it's hard to argue that this is not a better use than what that is now. The real question, though, is this the best use? And hopefully you'll see, reading the letter, hearing the residents tonight, the last 25 years of development in Tewksbury has suggested that local and state over the years have said industrial is not the best use. And all the immediate surrounding properties have been a residential and commercial focus. And so before the board makes a decision, I ask that you take that in consideration of what the momentum and vision that Tewksbury was and ask, what is the best use for this? And I hope that you'll find that you'll agree that it's continued development of commercial and residential as we transform that neighborhood and patch up a zoning mistake from the 50s, 60s, or 70s and rectify it so that Tewksbury can permanently have a nice neighborhood in that area. So I avail myself to any questions from the board.
We look forward to receiving your longer comments and the additional materials that you talked about, which we will review as we move through the rest of this proceeding. Thank you. Are there any local officials present or on Zoom that wish to comment? I believe the first to sign up was John Lombardo.
Yes, I'm John Lombardo, and I'm the elected official to the Board of Housing and serve as a vice chairman of the Economic Development Committee. So kind of like what Representative Dave Robertson was saying, there's definitely been a lack of transparency, especially at the municipal level. And that's what brings me here today, because it does cause a chain reaction on a lot of the concerns that the town has. And I'll touch on that. So even though I'm here on the Board of Housing, I serve on the Board of Housing and the Economic Development Committee, I'm not speaking on behalf of either, just a concerned elected official, someone who values transparency, accountability, and the safety for our community. Before addressing my concerns and requests, I do want to recognize that Massachusetts has made robust safety standards within the lithium battery storage. I have reviewed the NFPA 855 UL 9540A and related protocols, and it does show, responsibility in trying to protect the community. So I do want to recognize that. I also want to recognize our select board town manager. It is immense pressure doing this all. However, I do feel like there's been a lack of transparency again, and I do believe that public safety, environmental risks, and protection of medical vulnerable residents that we have in this location need to be prioritized and be communicated out to us.
Could you just slow down a little bit?
Yeah.
For the stenographer, thank you.
Got it. Okay. So I don't often stand up to oppose development or revenue generation initiatives. As someone who has served on the Economic Development Committee, I understand the importance of attracting new business and fostering growth. That's why it generally takes a great deal of me to speak up publicly. But I believe this moment calls for it. When a project touches on the safety and vulnerable residents and raises serious ethical concerns, we have a duty to pause. In this case, I do believe we haven't upheld that duty at the municipal level. Ethics and community safety must be the foundation of everything we do. And I know my position, it does challenge even the committee I serve on, but I am guided by principle and not popularity. I am not here for money, influence, or power within the financial realm. It's generally protecting the people of this community. I do lead from a place that prioritizes public safety and ethical integrity before economics and financial incentives. This is because lives, including those of our first responders and our elderly residents, deserve the highest level of care. My concerns and requests tonight focus on transparency, community engagement, and protections, and whether this project process truly reflects the intent of the 2024 Clean Energy Act, which calls for municipal involvement, environmental justice, and community protections. Tonight, I am formally requesting a pause on the permitting process, not to obstruct progress, but to protect the integrity of our institutions and to safeguard our first responders, residents, and our medically at-risk seniors who live roughly 600 yards or so from this location. This pause is necessary because the lack of transparency to date leaves Tewksbury uncertain whether our community is being adequately safeguarded prior to permitting. Each of my requests align with the 2024 Clean Energy Act and existing Massachusetts laws governing ethics, public records, and emergency planning. The first one, reason I'm calling for a pause on permitting is that we do need a complete disclosure of all communications, agreements, and financial engagements between the corporation, its parent company, and any third parties, and with our municipality leadership, including our town manager, select board, any relevant departments, and third parties that are involved. This request does come after Massachusetts Public Records Law, Conflict of Interest Law, Financial Disclosure Law. And why this matters, the Clean Energy Act was built on a promise, one that centers municipal engagement, environmental justice, and meaningful stakeholder participation. Yet in Tewksbury, we've seen that promise falter. From unfulfilled corporate promises to silence from our elected officials and town managers, transparency has been elusive. And without it, we cannot verify whether the Act's core principles have been respected or quietly bypassed. This breakdown And community engagement is precisely what compels requests 2, 3, and 4. So 2 is the creation of a joint state municipal emergency task force and the creation of a thorough medical and residential evacuation prior to permitting. Once the transparency is established, we must create a joint municipal state emergency planning task force to develop a comprehensive medical and residential evacuation plan prior to permitting. And I do believe this because of the location itself. This aligns with the Clean Energy Act, which requires equitable siting and community protection. NFPA 855 and UL 9540A standards mandate emergency response planning for battery energy storage systems, and California's Senate Bill 38, Chapter 377, now requires every lithium battery site to submit a detailed emergency response and action plan coordinated with the local fire and health agencies before permitting. Massachusetts should follow suit in this matter. Given the site's location adjacent to an at-risk senior community roughly 600 yards away and accessible by a single road, this evacuation will not be comparable to other lithium sites and require a thorough and transparent plan made public prior to permitting in coordination with local officials and our Board of Health, who has not had a single meeting with this corporation or our town yet. First, and I also request that we have first responder health protections in place prior to permitting. We need contractually guaranteed health protections and lifelong benefits for all emergency personnel, our firefighters, EMT, police, and medical teams before permitting. This reflects the Clean Energy Act's commitment to labor protection and public safety and ensures those who risk their lives are not left vulnerable to short or long-term health consequences. Fourth is a comprehensive safety and protection plan for our residents, workers, and on-site medical staff within 3,000 yards of the site required prior to permitting. Finally, for residents, workers, and seniors within 3,000 yards of the site, we need a state-backed emergency displacement plan, voluntary fair market home buyouts, and automatic presumptive health coverages. This aligns with the Clean Energy Act, environmental justice provisions, and ensures no family or vulnerable individual is left without shelter or care in the event of a catastrophe. And going back to one about why I believe we need transparency at the municipal level. This request is grounded again in Massachusetts public records law, in conflict of interest and financial disclosure. In Tewksbury, we have not had full engagement and transparency as promised by the corporation and municipality. No formal engagement with the Board of Health, despite public commitments from the corporation on the town website. No documents review of our senior living facilities proximity with our cross departments, elected officials, and boards, which I don't understand. This should be the biggest red flag. We should have identified that right away and had a cross-department safety meeting with the local officials in our committees. Yet that's never happened. There's been minimal dialogue with the select board, town manager, and impacted businesses and the local residents. If any, voices seem to be suppressed rather than heard. No involvement of the Economic Development Committee, which I serve on. No cross-departmental coordination with the Police, Fire, Council of Aging, who helps oversee our elderly within our community, Board of Health, and other municipal bodies, including their elected officials and committee members. No walkthrough of the nearby senior medical facility with a safety planning team, which would include our Board of Health. No public communication from our fire chief. No proposed or evacuation plan made publicly. No publicly posted records of a corporate municipal agreements. No responses to my request that I sent the select board and town manager requesting a cross-departmental meeting that I would help organize to address the safety concerns. No formal review by the Board of Health. The transparency is critical at this point, and every resident here today and the ones who live close by have every right to be concerned. The town and corporation have failed at protecting them and taking their voices seriously. We could use this data that we gather in an investigation or just public disclosure. We could use the data to ensure that that we're protecting them and that we could use this data to ensure that the corporation and municipality are prioritizing and ensuring public health and safety, not politics or profit, remain the center of this process. I believe all discussions should be heavily centered on health and housing protections for our first responders, residents, seniors, and businesses within the 3,000-yard radius. If they are not, it shows us we are not aligned with the Clean Energy Act promise, and there's a major breach of public trust. And the second one, which was to establish an emergency response team, in light of the coordination gaps and lack of transparency outlined earlier, I am respectfully request the creation of a local emergency response task force, a team of trusted municipal officials working in close partnership with state agencies, evacuation specialists, and public health experts. This team must be tasked with developing a comprehensive residential and medical evacuation plan prior to any permitting. This request is driven by the unique and high-risk nature of the site. The proposed lithium facility is adjacent to an at-risk senior community that is accessible by one road in and out. This layout creates a scenario unlike other peer ones that I've looked at, and an extremely difficult logistical challenge for emergency responders. In the event of a chemical fire, evacuation would be complex, time-sensitive, potentially life-threatening for medically vulnerable populations, and demand our first responders in surrounding towns spend hours, if not days, in a chemical atmosphere trying to get them out. Much of the seniors living in this facility are wheelchair-bound, oxygen-bound. They have medical staff there, and there's over 90 of them, and they're surrounded by residential buildings. This would be one of the craziest evacuations I think we will see if there is one. I'm requesting that this planning process be proactive too, transparent, and rooted in best practices, aligning with the Massachusetts Clean Energy Act, which emphasizes community protection, stakeholder engagement, and environmental justice. It should also reflect national standards such as the NFPA 855 and UL 9540A, which require emergency response planning to BESS. California's recent Senate Bill 38 legislation mandating emergency plans prior to permitting. I think Massachusetts needs to model that in this situation. To ensure, and the third one I want to go over is first responder health protections. We haven't heard anything about what's going to happen to them if there is a fire and they're forced into this environment. Usually, I would think if it's going to be a residential evacuation, it's going to be a lot easier, and you might be able to get people out faster. But you're going through a single road. There's going to be a traffic jam. They have to get medical patients out of that facility. They're forced to stay in this environment far longer than any other one that I basically have tried to look up on. The only thing I think I've seen up here site is one near a VA healthcare system. Even that, the logisticals might be a little easier, but this one's totally different. And I think David Robertson spoke to it greatly. You should go down there. You should go take a drive down there and genuinely look. It's a very dangerous location. But because of this, because they're going to be in this environment far longer, I need to make sure our town protects them. So I am requesting presumptive coverage for occupational illnesses linked to chemical exposure from a lithium-ion fire, including respiratory, neurological, and cancer-related conditions. I would like these to come from the state, the municipality, and the corporation. Make sure that nobody leaves them behind. Lifetime.
Mr. Lombardo, we have at least two other local officials who have also signed up. So we appreciate everything you're saying, but could you?
I will
wrap
definitely.
it up?
All right, so I'll keep going. So comprehensive safety and protection plans for the residents. I would like to have emergency displacement housing support, voluntary home buyouts, presumptive health protections, and for them to have guaranteed lifelong disability payments and zero out-of-pocket costs if they are displaced. And I'll just skip to the very end. I think the Commonwealth of Massachusetts moves forward with this permit before implementing proactive measures outlined, especially a comprehensive emergency response plan. You are setting the stage for a disaster and breaking the promise within the Clean Energy Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Braga. Melissa Braga.
Yes, Melissa Braga, B-R-A-G-A. Good evening. My name is Melissa Braga, and I serve on the chair of the Tewksbury Board of Health. I'm speaking tonight in the official capacity upon a vote taken by the Board of Health authorizing me to provide public health comments regarding the proposed BESS at 7375 Hillman Street. I want to begin by noting that the Board of Health has not taken a position for or against this project. Our responsibility under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 111, is to protect and promote the public health, safety, and welfare. That means identifying potential risks, reviewing data, and ensuring that if a project proceeds, it does so under conditions that adequately safeguard this community. So as everyone knows, this site proposes a 125 megawatt, 500 megawatt hour lithium battery system. The developer affiliated has stated that both the industrial buildings at 73 Hillman and the house, which dates back to 1900, would be demolished to make way for the facility. While the area is zoned industrial, it is not isolated, as you have heard. There is a residential home approximately 50 feet from the property, an assisted living community about 500 feet to the east, and another occupied buildings and businesses around the site. These facts alone place an added responsibility on all decision makers to consider the health and safety of those nearby, including elderly residents and individuals with medical or mobility limitations. The developer's own filings confirm that the project site lies within a Zone 2 wellhead protection area as defined by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. Zone 2 represents the land area that directly recharges a municipal drinking water supply well. Any contamination introduced in this area, whether from construction runoff, stormwater mismanagement, or an emergency response event, has the potential to migrate into the town's public water supply. That site also contains wetland resources areas, an isolated wetland to the north and a bordering vegetated wetland to the west, draining towards the Hillman and Clinton Street storm systems. Those systems eventually tie into broader drainage basins connected to the Tewksbury's aquifer recharge zones. From a public health perspective, this proximity underscores the importance of secondary contaminant systems, impermeable liners, and firewall collection infrastructure that can prevent chemical-laden water from entering soil or drains during a thermal runaway event. The Town of Tewksbury's own noise bylaw, Chapter 8.12, sets nighttime residential limits to 50 decibels and daytime limits to 60 decibels. In addition, the Mass DEP noise policy, DAQC 90-001, defines a violation as any noise that exceeds the amount ambient level by more than 10 dBA or contains a pure tone. According to the project sound level report, the facility is predicted to operate right at those thresholds, with a modeled 0 to 10 decibel increase at nearby residences and a maximum of 50 dBA at the assisted living community. Those are modeled projections, not field verified data. For that reason, I will strongly recommend that our board require a post-construction compliance test as a condition of approval with specific corrective actions and procedures occur. It's important to recognize that chronic exposure to elevated noise, particularly low frequency medical hum, has been associated with stress, sleep disturbance, and cardiovascular events, all of which are amplified in older adults and individuals with existing health conditions. Lithium-ion batteries, while generally stable in normal operation, carry a well-documented risk of thermal runaway, a condition in which a single overheating cell can ignite adjacent modules in a chain reaction. Events at Moss Landing, California, Chandler, Arizona, demonstrate that even with best practice systems, toxic gases such as hydrogen fluoride may be released, and fire water runoff can become contaminated with heavy metals and organic solvents. Because this site is within a Zone 2 recharge area, the firefighting operations must be designed with contaminant in mind, capturing and treating any water use rather than allowing it to infiltrate the ground. In addition to the obvious flame damage issues, the Board of Health is acutely concerned with the constituent toxicity of the smoke generated when lithium-ion batteries burn. The smoke, if inhaled, is highly toxic, containing hydrogen fluoride, which can cause severe respiratory irritation, pulmonary edema, where fluid builds up in the lungs, and long-term lung damage. Carbon monoxide, a potentially lethal gas, and hydrogen cyanide, a toxin that is highly cytotoxic, meaning it is toxic to the cells, damaging them or causing cell death. The Board of Health will expect the fire department's pre-incident plan, foam selection data, and runoff contaminant strategy to be provided publicly and subject to review. In its own filings, EFSB docket number 25-08, section 3.3, Hillman Energy Center evaluated 3 alternative parcels in Tewksbury. The first site, located near the substation, was eliminated due to extensive wetland impacts and proximity to high-density residential development. Site 2 on North Street was rejected for insufficient uplands with only about 3 acres of buildable land outside wetlands. Site 3 on Capitol Avenue was determined to be cost prohibitive, requiring a 4,000-foot interconnection corridor through developed areas. The developer ultimately selected the Hillman Street site because it offers close proximity to existing electrical infrastructure. However, the filings also acknowledges that the site shares the same wetland, adjacency, and residential proximity concerns that disqualified other parcels. That contradiction deserves further review before citing is finalized. As the governing body responsible for protecting the community's health and environment, the Board of Health's statutory role under Mass General Law, Chapter 111, is to place public health protection before cost considerations. To that end, the applicant should be aware that the road to final implementation must begin in a Board of Health meeting, and that it would be ill-advised to proceed further without making such demonstrations of lack of public health risk as my board may impose upon a hearing, consideration, and deliberation. Simply put, we will put human value far above dollar value. The applicant has demonstrated the opposite, and that it's dollars over people's health. Reference is specifically made to comments made to DEP, DOER, and BFPR on June 11th, 2025, setting forth the authority and duty of the Board of Health in this instance. Those comments stress the importance of starting the process before the Board of Health and the potential for devastating financial loss should the applicant wrongly decide to go through the process before the planning and zoning boards and gaining their approval, only to learn that the Board of Health will refuse to agree to the siting of the facility under its statutory granted powers under the Newsom Trade Statute General Law, Chapter 111, Section 143, which grants the boards the final say in this process. The town's legal counsel has cited Boston Gas Company versus City of Newton, a case in which the court found that certain energy facilities under state jurisdiction may be exempt from local zoning or health ordinances, but to my knowledge, that case has never been successfully used to prevent or stop a nuance or noisome trade action by Massachusetts Board of Health. While that ruling is respected, it certainly does not eliminate the Board of Health's obligation to identify and prevent public health risks. No decision from the SJC or the appeals court has ever held that business, planning and zoning, or any other interest that more important than the Board of Health's action to abate a nuance and to protect the population for noisome trades in the process is respected. The Massachusetts Association of Health Boards, in its just mentioned comments to the Department of Energy Resources and subsequent conversations with DOER personnel, have made clear that local boards of health retain the right and duty to conduct nuance and noisome trade determinations under MGL, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 111, Section 143, participate in emergency planning coordination, and request technical assistance from Mass DEP when projects pose health or environmental uncertainty. We intend to exercise those responsibilities fully and cooperatively, and to that end have reached out to the applicant to attend an upcoming Board of Health meeting to discuss the next steps in an open, transparent, and properly posted open meeting. These initial proceedings will not be held in executive session, as it is our position that the public has a right and a legitimate need to know all details of this project. I will add that I did make that request, and he is not available to attend, but we will still be discussing that at our next meeting. Accordingly, I respectfully ask that the Energy Facilities Siting Board and the applicant address the following terms on the record. Provide a comprehensive public health risk assessment, including potential exposure pathways for fire gases, contaminated runoff, and chronic noise. Commit to a hydrologic contaminant plan for firefighting and stormwater with the Zone 2 area, verified by independent engineering review as part of a site assignment process at the expense of the proponent of the project. Submit a post-construction noise compliance verification plan with enforceable mitigation steps in Mass DEP thresholds or other noise relisted conditions to be imposed by the Board of Health following a nuisance or noisome trade inquiry are exceeded. Shall all emergency response coordination documents, including evacuation procedures and communications protocols with the fire department, police, and Board of Health, impose a decommissioning and environmental remediation bond to ensure safe removal of all battery materials at end of life. These measures are not oppositional. They are the minimum due diligence needed to protect public health in a densely settled and an environmentally sensitive part of our community. In closing, the Tewksbury Board of Health remains neutral on the question of approval, but firm in its mission to ensure that any facility cited in this town meets the highest standards for public health protection. We appreciate the EFSB's attention to these concerns and the opportunity to place them into the record. Our board will continue to coordinate with state agencies, the applicant, and other town departments to ensure full transparency and public safety throughout this process. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have John Curran.
C-U-R-R-A-N. Thank you, Madam Chair. Take off my glasses because I can't read close up. My name is John Curran. I'm the town manager for the town of Tewksbury. I've been serving in this capacity since December of 2024. My role here is to serve the interests of the town of Tewksbury during this process. The Hillman Battery Energy Storage System proposal currently before the Energy Facility Siting Board is of utmost concern to the Select Board and local town boards and officials. The town's primary focus is potential impact on public health and safety in the community. The town is fully committed to representing the town's interests as an intervening party through the EFSB process. Recognizing that the Comprehensive Siting Authority is vested in the EFSB, the town submits that assurances must be put in place to protect the safety of the town and its residents. In the event that this process is approved by the EFSB, the town is negotiating a host community agreement with the petitioner to memorialize requirements that it believes are necessary to address public health and safety. These concerns include, but are not limited to, the following. Hillman Energy Center should provide public safety and emergency management trainings surrounding first responders' response to the community preparedness for battery energy storage systems and electrical system incidents. Hillman Energy Center should provide Tewksbury and regional responders with the technical rescue tools, equipment, and supplies necessary to handle a large-scale incident and/or a routine response. Hillman Energy Center should provide Tewksbury with funding for costs incurred by the town to retain independent consultants and counsel necessary for the town to review and participate in any proceedings regarding the permits for this project. Hillman Energy Center should provide Tewksbury with funding for costs incurred by the town to retain independent consultants to conduct a study of whether there is a need for a traffic signal for Archstone in Main Street on Route 38. Hillman Energy Center should ensure that the design, construction, and operation of the project conform to and comply with all applicable laws, including but not limited to, as follows: any traffic, noise, or visual requirements or limitations, any applicable building, plumbing, electrical, gas, and fire safety codes, and configurations of all lighting, landscaping, building, and site designs, and signage, and National Fire Prevention Agency, NFPA, 855 standards for the installation of stationary energy storage systems. The town has engaged special counsel and other consultants to ensure that the interests of the town are adequately represented. Additionally, the town expects to engage other consultants as needed throughout the process. The town has also posted a page that lists all meetings and hearings that have occurred to date, as well as links to information about the EFSB process and the Hillman Energy Center project proposal. It also includes factual information about this technology and frequently asked questions. The town is committed to making this process transparent and informative. And just as an example, the town has met with some of the different interest groups in town about this proposal on several different occasions. And in the
Quiet. Mr. Curran?
Yes, thank you. So as noted, the town intends to seek full intervenor status in the upcoming proceedings to review this petition and to fully participate in this process and to present its perspectives. The town appreciates the Siting Board's conduct of this hearing and subsequent proceedings and its commitment to balance the various interests involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other local officials present or on Zoom that wish to comment? If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand. Next, we will take comments from members of the general public, beginning with those who have pre-registered with the Siting Division staff in the order in which they registered. When called, please give your name, spell your last name, and give your address. We request that you limit your remarks to approximately 3 minutes so we can accommodate everyone who wishes to speak tonight. After we have called upon the speakers who have already registered, we will call on others who have signed the speaker sheet posted in the lobby in the order in which they signed up. Then we will take any remaining members of the public who wish to speak. Thank you. I would like to call on Christine Chesborough to start. I told you 3 minutes.
Christine Chesborough, CHESBROUGH, and my address is 398 Chandler Street, and I live in Tewksbury. Good evening. I have been a resident of Tewksbury for 28 years. I support clean energy, but this is not the right location and approach for a lithium battery facility. The company cares only about profit, not safety. One disaster could change this town forever. The proposed site already contaminated due to the current owner, who has failed to follow safety and environmental policies. Additionally, the town has failed to enforce proper cleanup and accountability. Now, a lithium battery facility is proposed for this exact location and is being framed as a solution for cleaning up this area. However, the few benefits of this facility does not outweigh the cons. It is dangerously close to homes, schools, healthcare facilities, and essential services, creating a serious risk for the entire community. The site location is within 2 air miles of critical locations. There are active railroad tracks carrying hazardous materials only 400 feet away. Route 495 is less than a mile away. It is extremely close to schools, police and fire stations, assisted and retirement living facilities, the 911 communication center, Tewksbury Transit, and the State Hospital. Just 2.5 miles away is the Market Basket Distribution Center, which supplies over 95 grocery stores across 4 states. If the facility had a shutdown during an emergency, delivery trucks full of food would be stranded and cause a disruption in the food supply. This shows how deeply this project threatens not just our town, but the regional infrastructure we rely on. The Moss Landing, California fire forced a 3-mile evacuation. If an explosion or fire of the same intensity occurred in Tewksbury, all schools, businesses, all shelter locations, and other critical locations will need to evacuate. We do not have enough firefighters and police resources to focus both on disaster and evacuation. In the event of an emergency, time is critical. The nearest foam truck, I have been told, is located in Boston. For residents who work at home, how would they manage lost wages during an evacuation? For residents who do not work at home, how would they get back home during an evacuation to gather medicine, pets, family members, and other necessary resources? In the event of an evacuation, shelter would be required for thousands of residents. Where are they going to stay? What about pets and people with disabilities? Who is going to pay for this? East Point Energy is an LLC. They claim this facility will bring in tax revenue, but much of that will be spent on planning, protective gear, and emergency preparation before the town sees any benefit. Their business model is clear. They build these projects, they get them running, they sell or transfer them to avoid accountability, leaving the long-term responsibility behind. If the facility is sold, the town could face extra costs to coordinate with the new owner, while still paying wages for emergency planning and response. In the event of a fire or disaster, the company could walk away, leaving the town to manage the consequences. A recent survey and community feedback showing overwhelming opposition to this project has shown that residents have serious concerns and believe the area is too congested for a facility of this type, which I'm going to email you the results. When you see elderly residents standing outside in 85-degree heat or rain holding protest signs because they are so afraid of what is coming, that should tell you something. Protect our town, our neighbors, and our local businesses. Stand with the people who actually live here in Tewksbury, whose lives will be directly affected, and say no to this project. Thank you.
Next is Linda Martin.
Good evening. My name is Linda Martin, M-A-R-T-I-N, and I live at 25 Emerald Court in Tewksbury. My condo is less than 600 feet from the proposed facility. In fact, I was told this by an employee of East Point Energy in March 18, 2025. Also on that date, an employee from the company told me not to worry about a thermal event. It wouldn't happen, they told me. And if it did, a response plan would be created after the facility was approved by the state. But when my neighbors spoke to the Tewksbury fire chief, they were told there would be no evacuation plan. Instead, residents would be required to shelter in place. This is not acceptable. Thermal events do happen, and I don't want to go over what will happen in a thermal event. But in 2025, there were 4 fires at lithium battery plants. The very large one at Moss Landing, a fairly other large one in Monterey County, in Boulder City, and Otay Mesa. In Moss Landing, there was a requirement of evacuation for 2 miles. The same 2 miles existed in Monterey County. Can residents of Tewksbury living with a 2-mile radius evacuate safely? Let me just talk about where I live. Emerald Court is home to 264 residents, all aged 55 and older. Many use walkers, have oxygen or wheelchairs. Some others live alone. In an emergency, they cannot leave on their own. They will need help, real physical assistance from trained responders. Next door is Bayberry. It's an assisted living facility with a memory care unit with 64 residents. These residents are vulnerable and will also require professional help to evacuate. Both Emerald Court and Bayberry are entirely with a 1/2 mile radius from the proposed project, much less than 2 miles required at other areas. Yet there is only one road out of Emerald Court, and it leads toward the battery fire. It goes toward the battery site. That means as ambulances enter, panicked residents will be trying to escape. I know I would. Shelter in place would be impossible for me. My window frames leak, and there is an area under my cabinets that has a breeze. Toxic fumes would envelop my condo for days. I need to get out of there in a thermal fire. From this one small road leads to 3 other small roads, all branching off from Emerald Court. Each of these streets exit into our favorable Route 38. Within this small area going out to 38, there are 18 businesses with 120 employees, 20 homes, some within only 40 feet, a daycare, a large apartment complex with 250 units, all within a 1/2 mile radius. Can all these people exit to Route 38? Remember, the ambulances are going to be coming into that area. And there also is a school within 7/10 of a mile, 1,100 small children, some with special needs. If they need to evacuate, can the town of Tewksbury do this? Does the town have the resources to accomplish this? And remember, if we had to shelter in place could happen for days. Would small children be required to stay in their schools for that many days? I see my time is up. Interestingly, the new regulations that are proposed by the state for battery energy sites require that there be no residences within 2,000 feet. I live within 600 feet. The new regulations would not allow the Hillman project to move forward. But this is not about policy. This is about people, many of whom simply cannot get out on their own. If the town cannot guarantee a safe and fast evacuation, then this facility does not belong here. Thank you very much.
John Harrington. Linda Harrington. Marianne Bushak.
My name is Marianne Buczak, B-U-C-Z-A-K. I live at 40 Emerald Court, Tewksbury. Tonight, I'm here to probably say more of the same, but it bears repeating. I'm speaking against the proposed lithium-ion battery farm because it's 680 feet from my door. I am the daughter of a firefighter and a hazmat officer. We also have 3 other firemen in our family. 3 of them are gone now. I haven't slept for 5 months since I first heard about this because they've been waking me up saying, Marianne, say something, get up, do something. What's wrong with you? So I have been trying to do something for 5 months, in the rain, in 90-degree weather, holding signs, letting people know about this, because I don't think this town has done a fair job of letting people know about this. The life savings of hundreds of our seniors, infirmed, veterans, and our young children are all at risk, especially the health. These are our most vulnerable. What is wrong with us and what is wrong with this town? We are not against clean energy or better energy. We are against this heavily condensed, populated location. It makes no sense. There is a lot of wetlands, a lot of wildlife. They'd all be wiped out. We would not be able to get out. I think that's been made very clear. I have tried to think of any way to evacuate this area. 1,500 people, totally impossible, totally impossible. They need to find a safer, more isolated location. The safety of our people and our residents are at stake here. We need to pay attention. Does anyone remember W.R. Grace down in Woburn? Too late for them, isn't it? That was a contamination problem, and there was many, many people that passed away from cancer, from leukemia, many birth defects in that neighborhood. Well, it's too late for us to do anything for these poor people, but the time for us to act is right now. We need to exercise some common sense. It seems to me there isn't enough of that going around these days. Just look at our country. There isn't enough common sense, but we have the ability to try to stop this and wait for the possible passing of House Bill 4556 and Senate Bill 3224 that will demand that no house can be within 2,000 feet, no wetlands can be between 3,000 feet. Wouldn't it be prudent to use our brain and wait for this new regulations and new legislation to come through? Now is the time to unanimously reject this project. In closing, we all need to remember, everyone in this room, none of us would want this within a few hundred feet from their home, or their children, or their elderly parents. We need to remember the sanctity and moral value for our great town of Tewksbury should always be people over profits. Thank you.
Sandy Benassi.
Good evening. Thank you. Benassi, B-E-N-A-S-S-I, and I'm 16 Court Street. As a resident of Tewksbury for 25 years, we feel compelled to stress the life-threatening danger of this project presents to my family and neighbors. This project site is only 590 feet from my property line. We worry about this. We worry about the risk of uncontrollable fires, the toxic fumes they produce. These highly toxic fumes pose a severe threat to risk to anybody nearby and can render entire areas uninhabitable. And fire departments across the country have struggled to contain such incidents, and in many cases, these thermal runaway fires reignite multiple times. Even more alarming, these batteries can overheat and rupture with explosive force, especially during malfunctions and power outages, something Tewksbury is very familiar with. Experts have compared these events to grenade-like explosions capable of destruction beyond its immediate site. And living only 590 feet away, my family would likely be among the first casualties if such a disaster occurred. A reality, it's absolutely terrifying to think about. and a responsibility I would not wish to weigh on any elected official who approves this project. And what adds to this fear is the feeling that we, the residents, were not given a real voice or a choice in this matter. Our elected selectmen were chosen to represent and protect our health, safety, and welfare, yet many of us have been left feeling powerless and ignored. Locating a hazardous battery plant so close to family homes, daycares, schools, and businesses is a direct violation of that trust. Beyond immediate safety risks, there is also a real economic harm. Residents of Tewksbury have worked hard to build and maintain their homes, many relying on their property as their largest investment and source of security. The presence of a hazardous industrial site in such close proximity inevitably lowers property values and threatens our financial future. Residents here have invested their life savings into their homes, and losing both safety and financial stability is devastating. The community deserves to feel secure and have a peace of mind in our homes without the constant fear and anxiety of potential disaster looming. Please take into account the real and lasting impact this project will have and the mental well-being, safety, and the quality of life of the Tewksbury residents. We strongly urge you to reject this project and relocate it to a more appropriate area. The health and safety of Tewksbury families must always come first. Thank you.
You okay? Elaine Hogan.
Good evening. My name's Elaine Hogan, Hogan. I live at 100 Corinne Way, Unit 304, Tewksbury. Welcome to Tewksbury Committee, the former carnation capital of the world. I hope it doesn't become the new lithium capital of the world. But anyway, I was brought home from the hospital to Tewksbury. You know, I went to Tewksbury High Schools and everything, college. And during the years I've lived there, but I always came back to Tewksbury. And why? Because it's a nice town. I talk to people who have lived here or are living here, and I said, why do you come here? Because it's a nice town. And it's true. And if we get this thing in here, and I call it a thing, then it will not be a nice town. And just like someone just said, I will live with fear because you never know what's going to happen. Now, I was speaking to someone, they said, you know, they have all these safety things and everything. Well, I don't know how many people were here. I know one person was here. He was a firefighter. In February 1972, when the Lowell gas tanks went up, and they said, oh, they're fine. Oh, no problem. And I only learned this February, that when Chief Ogden was was fire chief at the time, and he said, why don't you put them underneath the ground, the pipes? Oh, nothing's going to happen. And they didn't put it under, and that's what started the whole thing. 3 people were killed, 700 people were evacuated. Many of the firemen couldn't work for months, including my next-door neighbor, who was on the first call, Captain Fred Miller, who later died about 11 months later. And so you never know if this is going to go up. And it shouldn't be in Tewksbury. People have said about, you know, I mean, if there's a fire in the pollution, I mean, I live on Livingston Street in a senior house, and that's only like 2.5 miles away. No, only which we have to evacuate Emerald Court, Bayberry, and Blair House, but you perhaps have to evacuate, you know, Delaney, the villa at the Meadowview, and also Saunders. I mean, Tewksbury has changed a lot since I've been living here. You know, there wasn't any, you know, there were hardly any cars on Livingston Street, and now you can't even get out of the road, which is good, because people like the town and they come. But this town is too heavily populated for such a project. And it's my feeling completely that it shouldn't be here, of course, but I think that a lot of the elected officials want it just because it's provoking taxes. And what's more important, people's lives are getting revenue from taxes. Thank you.
Margaret Schneider or Schleider?
Close enough.
Good evening. I am officially Margaret Crab Schleicher, but everybody knows I'm Peggy Schleicher, and that's Schleicher. Thank you for coming to Tewksbury, and good evening. I am here tonight because I am a concerned citizen who is opposed to the lithium-ion site. Let me be clear. I have no opposition to clean energy as a way to protect our planet. However, I have a strong opposition to a lithium-ion plant near people, homes, schools, businesses, and wetlands. I am talking about 169 standalone units. I am talking about the fact that each unit is 19.9 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 9.5 feet tall, and each has a maximum weight of 93,700 pounds. That's big, right? Okay, close your eyes and picture that site. I come tonight to ask human interpersonal questions. Why? Why put a potentially dangerous site near our kids, our homes, our elderly? Why take a chance of a disaster? Have you ever experienced an evacuation from a school? I have. Have you ever seen dementia patients that you love suffer disorientation and regression caused by changes? I have. Have you ever imagined an evacuation from a nursing home? I have. Have you ever had someone you love get sick or die from a chemical fire or a vapor exposure? Perhaps a firefighter. I have. There is no money-making project that is worth potential danger to people, young or old. Prevention beats intervention every time. After a tragedy, saying sorry and scrambling to blame is an unacceptable response when prevention could have prevented such a tragedy. People's safety must rule over all other considerations. Safety must rule over money and power. My message is simple. Safety is the sacred and first job of government. Voters do not like potential dangers in their town. I am here tonight to speak for the thousands of Tewksbury people who signed a petition against the development of lithium-ion plant in our community. 2,557 people whose signatures say no to a lithium-ion site here, people. The sacred role of government is to protect people from harm. Please, do your job. Keep us safe. Thank you. Alan Picon.
My name is Alan Capone, C-A-P-O-N-E. I'm going to make a little levity about that. Let's go a different way. I got a 7-page document here that I wrote. I've been going on right there for about 9 days. I'm not even going to talk about that. Because we've touched on every single thing that we're opposed to, what we're asking you to do. I don't know what else to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anything. I am the chairman of the board of trustees at Emerald Court. I live at number 52. You look in this crowd. I want everybody to raise his hand. Who lives in Emerald Court right now? Look at these people. It's a 55-plus community. The average age is 80. I'm 75. I'm making it there one day or another. We all still have an assisted living issues heard. I look at that assisted living every single day. It has a memory care. I watch those people every single day. I walk by there with my dog and my wife as we walk by, and we say, what is going to happen to these people in the event of something of that magnitude came about? We're not, and green energy is a great thing. It's not a bad thing, it's a great thing. Governor Haley signed that bill, but she didn't think, and it's just not her. All her people, her staff, they didn't think about where and how they were going to put it. It's all about where and how are you going to put it. You're trying to put it in an area that is surrounded by businesses. One company alone owns probably 8 buildings over there. She's panicking to this day what's going to happen. And I only live 560 feet away. What is going to happen? Hillman never wrote in their paperwork on March 18th, never did they show a report on their diagram. It doesn't show. I asked questions on March 18th. How are you going to respond to this if this happens? Oh, we have a response team. And where is that response team, I asked? Oh, they're in Texas. I go, what, are you going to hire Superman? Seriously. Now, that response team that was supposed to be in place, if you look at the postcard that they sent, I don't know if you have one of those, it says now they're coming up with a response plan. Well, which came first, the team or the plan? Are we shifting gears here? I'll go on and go back to one thing. Find a solution, find a place where this belongs. It doesn't belong on Hillman Street. It butts up against conservation land. As you heard, the Great Swamp, do you understand that if there's a fire, God forbid there's a fire over there, and they're pouring tons and tons and tons of water, and by the way, there's no dike system that was proposed in the event if there was a fire. It's open on 2 sides. They only have 2 walls. So where's that water going to go? I'll tell you where it's going to go. It's going to go in the conservation land. And you know, we're talking about the evacuation and we're taking out, that water is going into the conservation land and it's going to affect my property. I'll tell you how. Because that water goes into my irrigation system. So you might as well kiss Emerald Court goodbye because it'll be totally contaminated by whatever is coming out of it. Please take care of what we're saying and look at the site. That's all I ask. Thank you.
We're going to take a brief break. We're going and come back in 5 minutes. There's at least another 20. Oh, it might take a while. Back on the record. Edward Filikowicz, could you please come down to the podium?
All right.
The guy that just came up. Do you see him?
Going to the next one.
Then we're moving on to Sandra Poole. Ms. Poole?
Good evening. My name is Sandra Poole, P-O-O-L-E. I reside at 64 Emerald Court. I got one of these postcards in the mail. Safe, clean, and reliable. Well, I'm here to discuss a few things that I'm concerned about, critical concerns. Health, safety, and environmental impact and the potential for financial burden on the town. I support clean energy, but this site is fundamentally ill-suited, an unacceptable risk to our community, particularly given the fact that the proximity to residential areas and vulnerable population. A lot of the things we're going to talk about have already been discussed. Fire. But one of the main things I want to really stress, and I can't wrap my head around this particular area is a Zone 2 wellhead protected area, okay? It's established to protect the water supply. According to Massachusetts Wellhead Protection Regulations, 310 CMR 22.21, it prohibits any high-risk land use. A lithium-ion battery factory, it's considered hazardous waste. So this would be totally ill-suited to build a construction of a facility on this type of a land. It would directly contradict the core principles of a wellhead protected area. It also would require multiple zoning exemptions. Kind of convenient that Maura Healey passed the 2024 law that would just bypass all of those zoning restrictions and give them a green light to build here. But you know, we have two bills pending in legislation now in the House. Bill 4556 and the Senate Bill 3224. And those would give us protection because if you permit this site to be built, I consider it actually criminal because you'd be breaking the law. We don't have a buffer zone, and I'll wrap it up because I know my time is coming short, but the risk associated with this proposed large-scale facility is life-threatening. It's a danger of toxic smoke to people if we have a catastrophic event, and it's too close to vulnerable populations, so it far outweighs any purported benefits. So I urge this siting board to think long and hard when you're making a decision, because we, the people of Tewksbury, deserve to have a voice, and that's why we're here tonight, to be heard.
My name is Edward Filistowicz, and I Filistowicz. I live at 37 Marshall Street. I've lived in Tewksbury for 40 years, most of my adult life. And I seem to recall in my Tewksbury history that that particular substation that all of this is talking about was back at World War II. The Department of Defense was very concerned that if it got bombed, it would shut off the power for the entire East Coast. You can look that up at Tewksbury Library. I'm pretty sure that's the facts. But I share many of the same concerns that most of the other residents here do. And the part that I don't like is the fact that we're not getting enough information. For instance, that first guy who spoke, he said, oh, well, you know, he spoke real highly that there was some sort of a remote shut-off. I mean, personally, the only remote shut-off I would like would be one going to the fire station. At least that's what seems to make sense to me. Any place else, it's no good. If that's not the case, then why can't they tell us that? Not enough information. This Hillman Energy, or Hillman whatever it is, Hillman is the street there. And it's basically, I'm very concerned about who is profiting from this. Best case scenario is it's some subsidiary of National Grid, which I wouldn't like, but, you know, they're a power company. Maybe perhaps it's some subsidiary of Raytheon, another major taxpayer in the town, which I wouldn't like it, but Raytheon's been in town for a lot of years, and they've done a lot of good things for a lot of people. I get it. But what if it's somebody else? What if it's somebody else? Somebody like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, perhaps it's some foreign entity. Do we even know that? Because when you go back to our history, we remember that particular substation is mighty important, and we need to protect it. I've come to a lot of these town meetings through the years, and I voted for most of the improvements that have come along. I love this town, and one of the other things that I recall an older woman who had said it at one of these town meetings. What we have in Tewksbury is location, location, location. And I don't think that we should just be allowing somebody to come in here and not even tell us who they are. We need to know who they are, period. That's all I got.
Anthony Savoya. Peter McCoy.
Good evening. My name is Peter McCoy, MCCOI. I'm a trustee of Emerald Court Corporation, and I live at 71 Emerald Court. I have a bit of a speech I was going to give tonight, but everyone has said basically what is necessary to say. The only question I really have, and I'm sure the gentleman over here can answer it for me, Washington Street was not picked because the petition says because of, where are we? It was immediately adjacent to the southeast and northeast of the site's property line, residential development. Now, Hillman Street is probably, maybe 120, 130 feet from the Washington Street site that wasn't considered. But the Hillman site was picked and it's entirely developed, yet no wetlands there, and it's only minor potential for the impact of wetlands along the transmission interconnection accessible from a public road, which is Hillman Street, and its surrounding land uses are predominantly industrial commercial nature. For some reason, there is no mention of residential development near the Hillman Street site, even though the Hillman property line is approximately 540 feet from the Emerald Court condominiums, a 55-plus development consisting of 180 units, housing nearly 250 elderly residents. I happen to be one of them. I'm 84. Also within the boundaries of this condo community is an assisted living memory care facility, namely Bayberry. But the point is, why wasn't this given in the petition that Hillman gave us in regards to Washington Street wasn't picked because it was close to a residential development, but Hillman Street wasn't. What are they trying to hide? What were they hiding? Well, now we know. Now we know. They want this because of the money involved in regards to this property. I'm going to go one step further. Directly across from the preferred site, one finds a 3-story office building housing many active tenants. Within 1,400 feet of this preferred site, one finds homes on Washington Street, Court Street, Old Boston Road, and a 7-building apartment complex known as the Residence of Tewksbury Commons. Again, from what little research done, there are approximately 500 people living in this area, inclusive of many children that attend Tewksbury schools. One has to bear in mind information that we already have. There's only one road leading out of Emerald Court. The road goes to Washington Street. Washington Street goes to Old Boston Road. Old Boston Road goes to Archstone Street, which connects the 7-building apartment complex with maybe 400 or 500 people in it. Okay, I bring this up just to have an idea. If there was a problem, not to say that there would be, but if there was a problem at the Hillman BESS facility, how difficult it could be to evacuate the area. Yet, it appears as if the 7375 Hillman Street, the preferred site for 169 trailer-sized lithium-ion batteries, was picked with little or no consideration for the people working and living within sight of this project. You have to reject it. Thank you.
Diane Bartolomea.
Yes. That is Bartalamia. Good evening. My name is Diane Bartolomea. I live at 180 Cabot Road in Tewksbury. I'm here tonight to express my concern that I am against the construction of this project. And everyone else has already expressed some of the things I was going to say, but I am concerned because I have 5 grandchildren in the Tewksbury schools. who could be in harm's way in case of emergency or fire in this facility. I would ask the siting board if they would, if you were inclined to make a decision to allow this project in Tewksbury, take a look at the town of Tewksbury street maps. You will notice subdivisions. There's several streets within one subdivision. They're all separated by wetlands. Tewksbury doesn't have very many roads that you could bypass and cut through or take shortcuts. Our main road, Route 38, Mass Highway, it's one way in each direction. I would be in a panic if I had to get from my house to the school to pick up those kids. And if you look at it, you'll get a better idea. There might be 10 streets with one exit into the main road, and that's very important to look at. And I also agree that I don't believe Hillman is a public service corporation. I believe they're in here to make a profit. This is a business venture that they planned in Virginia and brought it to Massachusetts. They have a lot of money. You could see it just in their petition. They hired experts to give favorable opinions as to what they want. I hope everybody could see through that. Also, I have noticed on their petition, I've seen a term repeatedly, public convenience or welfare. They put that out there. What does that mean? I haven't even read anything in their petition about the public convenience or welfare. Welfare of what? Welfare for the people? I hope so. I would say that the governor took away our zoning bylaw, our right, and put a statute for the benefit of the Commonwealth in a whole. But I also think the proponent who was asking for 5 exemptions because it's elected this location and wants to come here has a lot of nerve to require that many exemptions. That's proof in itself. It's not a fit. And the situation calls for them to look for other sites. The human factor has to be weighed against the governor's energy plans. The siting board is called upon to determine the proposed use is reasonably necessary for public convenience or welfare. What is that? Just a minute, let me wrap up. You're charged with making a determination on whether these plans for construction are consistent with current health, environmental protection, resources, and development. These folks from Virginia should explore construction perhaps in a rural district or even in a city like Arlington, where the public officials might be in favor of the project. Thank you.
Patricia Stratus.
My name is Patricia Stratus, S-T-R-A-T-I-S. I live at 89 Emerald Court, Tewksbury. We have the petitions. We are presenting this siting board with 2,557 signatures from Tewksbury citizens who are against the lithium-ion battery storage site because it is too near residents, schools, homes, businesses, and conservation land in our town. More signatures continue to accumulate daily. What I have written is very similar to what everybody else has been saying, so there's no sense in me going through this. But Tewksbury is a family-based community. We care about each other. This project holds potential dangers for many of our resident families, schools, and businesses. I am concerned about Emerald Court, obviously, because I live there, but I am also concerned with the surrounding areas to us. And within a half a mile of this site, there are 1,227 plus residents, as well as many homes and different residences and different apartments, assisted living. And the public schools are within a mile of the proposed site. The Center Elementary School has 812 students and 57 teachers. John F. Ryan Elementary School has 500 students, 43 teachers. Tewksbury High School has 696 students and 57 teachers. That is more than 2,000 students and 150 teachers and support staff who would have to be evacuated should there be anything that happens in this storage facility. Are we doing it for tax revenues? I'm not really sure. It doesn't make sense. Will the tax revenues from the project be offset by the real estate taxes lost from property devaluations? The residents of Tewksbury will bear the risks: environmental, health, safety, and financial. And is the town requiring money to be put into a bond or an escrow in case this fails and we are set with half a project or a project that isn't running correctly? Stop Hillman Energy Center. It is not good for any of us. Keep Tewksbury residents safe. Wouldn't it be prudent to wait, people have mentioned this before, for House Bill 4556 to pass, stating all homes must be at least 2,000 feet away from any battery site? Also, Senate Bill 3224 was in the process and deals with buffer zones for lithium-ion battery storage facilities. The safety of residents is more important than expediency. That's it.
Thank you. Bob Wald.
Hi, my name is Bob Wald. I live at 97 Cardigan Road, and I've been a resident of Tewksbury for 35 years. I'm also a volunteer with the Climate Group 350 Massachusetts in the Greater Lowell chapter for about 6 years, and I'm glad to hear several people say that they are in favor of environmental protection. There is a clear need for battery storage for the essential transition to clean energy. But neither 350 Lowell nor I know if this is a good site for this particular facility. Like others, I have quite a few important site-specific questions for the company, and I would like if they get a chance to answer. Safety is my first consideration, but I want to know if there actually is a significant risk of a catastrophic fire any time in the life of the facility. Normally, there would be racks in the containers. There would be racks of maybe 100 batteries in each 20-foot container, so around 15,000 batteries in the facility. If a fire does occur in the battery in one container, what is the chance of the fire spreading to another container? Let's remember we all have a lithium battery in our pockets. So if there is somebody from the company who can answer that question, I sure would like to know the answer. You can answer.
It's up to the company if they'd like to provide a response.
Sure. The UL90 testing that the batteries have to go through does test the propagation of the thermal runaway event and ensures that if there is a thermal runaway in a single container, a single battery, it will not spread to the adjacent containers.
by a
You need to move closer to the mic, sorry.
Thank you. Thank everybody for their patience, and yours too, the whole group. By a significant risk, I mean something that is well beyond the accepted everyday risks that we all take. We drive cars, there are risks in that. We fly airplanes, there are risks in that. We go into public spaces like this one without a COVID mask, so we take risks. And is this one similar to those risks, or is it a lot more? And it's a crucial question because if a fire breaks out, and the information we have been offered here is that it won't, would it be just in 1 or 2 containers, or even the 4 in a cluster in the diagrams? And if that's, and the other part is that if that size and kind of fire can be controlled by our fire department, then the neighbors would not be in danger and may not have to be evacuated. I would want the answer to be given not by a company person, but by an expert who is speaking under oath.
So, Mr. Wald, we will be having adjudicatory proceedings in this case, in which we have evidentiary hearings in which testimony is provided under oath, which will examine the broad variety of potential impacts of the project, including the safety hazards.
Good, very good. The same type of question applies to the health from the smoke that would come out of a battery fire. There are seven case studies that I saw said that the 7 state studies for the past 6 years where there's been a fire, and taken together, these case studies concluded that emissions are largely confined to the immediate vicinity of the fire, with rapid dissipation in the open air. And I could give a couple of examples. In addition, various engineering consultants have modeled the dispersion and come to the conclusion that the emissions generally do not reach levels of concern beyond the immediate fire site. So for this facility, the people who live nearby deserve to know that the smoke risk to their health from 1, 2, or 4 container fire, both on a windy day and in the direction of Emerald Court, and on a calm day, they want to know the risk. They're entitled to know the risk. And they deserve to know that, again, from an expert under oath, and not for a PR person. So there are other issues which other people can address about noise and the one evacuation route that exists now, the effect on property values, and the host community benefit agreement. But it's enough time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary O'Neill.
Got it. Mary O'Neill, O-N-E-I-L. And I live at 1 Ferguson Road in Wilmington. I want to voice my support for the Hillman Energy Center project as not only a member of the surrounding community, but as someone who studied and cares about environmental science and currently works in the utility sector to help municipalities achieve their energy efficiency and decarbonization goals. From my background, I know that without clean, innovative technologies such as battery energy storage systems, the existing aging electric grid will struggle to keep up with the existing demand, much less than that required to meet Massachusetts' 2050 climate goals, which are written into law. From working with neighboring municipalities, it is challenging even now to pursue electrification or building upgrade projects to improve indoor air quality where electrical service upgrades are needed, as certain areas already have grid systems that are near or at demand capacity. From a different lens as a homeowner in the area, I also know I am likely not the only one to receive peak demand alerts with calls to action to shave the peak and reduce our energy usage, or stranger to the frequent power outages. Projects like the Hillman Energy Center that aim to provide a backup source of energy for the community during peak demand and power outages are essential to ensuring we have control over our energy use, reduce peak demand costs, and have power when we need it. This point is especially important for me as I hope to remain in the community, raise my family here, and am cognizant of the risks and costs required to do so.
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry, if we have been polite and listened to everyone who wants to express an opinion, who has signed up to speak. If you are unable to do so, we will ask to have you escorted out so we can continue the hearing.
Thank you.
Mrs. O'Neill.
Of course. With an aging grid, costs to maintain the aging systems to avoid power outages and meet demand will only rise. Knowing this, and that the project is planned to incorporate hazardous waste mitigation of the existing brownfield site, safety planning will be developed with the Tewksbury Fire Department. It is my hope that this project moves forward as a significant step in grid modernization and resilience, ensuring available and affordable energy for the future. Thank you.
John Quinn.
My name is John Quinn, Quinn. I'm 69. I'm one of the young guys here. And I reside at 51 Emerald Court in Tewksbury. I am deeply concerned about Hillman's facility proposal due to its risk to vulnerable residents in the community. I won't bore you with the macro. I'll just go to the site itself. Within 1,000 feet, there is a 55-plus community, 260 residents, just 560 feet away, in an assisted living facility, 64 occupants within Emerald Court footprint, 20 nearby residents, 46 people, one within 34 feet, 18 businesses with 120 employees, some only 40 feet from the site. The proximity of these groups raises serious safety concerns, particularly considering single-lane roads and evacuation challenges to elderly assisted living residents. Are you aware of the 3 public schools that are on Pleasant Street that have 2,000 students that are within a mile of this facility? Are you aware of that? Because it wasn't called for in the regs to be depicted. Under the new rulemaking regs, those schools would have been seen prior to the application being submitted. And I'm going to talk about that later. The Hillman petition, page 13, states the project team is working with the Tewksbury Fire Department to develop an emergency response plan. This plan will be finalized prior to the operation of the facility. So before they go in and turn the key on, they'll have a plan ready. Shouldn't that plan be done in advance? Does this include advice for off-site evacuations? I've heard no discussions about what are the plans to move people if there is a fire and they have to leave their facility. And I've heard no plans for evacuating students, and that's a horror show if you tried to move 2,000 students around the same time, because they all have different dismissal times. The buses are all set up to deal with them in increments, not in big macros. And where would you bring them to? This process must prioritize community safety, not just new revenues. Community input and proper support funds are essential to ensure our interests are fairly represented and protected. The proposed rulemaking changes
of the 2024 Climate Act will shape future projects. Two key updates relevant to the Hillman project are pre-filing requirements to identify all landmarks within a 1 mile radius. That would be the schools. The implementation of the Intervenor Grant Fund. Both would benefit the Tewksbury community. The 1 mile landmark rule would highlight the schools earlier in the process, while the grant fund would allow local groups to access resources needed to review complex documents. We haven't been afforded that. It's like we're being grandfathered. We can't get those funds, and we didn't get the notification on the 2,000 students. I'm going quick. So I would ask for you to reject this due to the insuitability of this site, and also the fact that we don't get the accommodations that other communities are going to get in the future. So if you thought there was something wrong with the regs and you're correcting them, then why are we going to have to live with the old ones? It's not right.
Cindy Smith.
Cindy Smith, 22 Court Street, Tewksbury. I'm not going to be as eloquent as everybody who came before me. I'm angry. This is about 550 feet from my home. My husband and I both predominantly work from home. We have a school-aged child. We have pets. My grandparents were former residents of Bayberry, right down the street. It's been brought up before, asking if you've done a walkthrough of Bayberry. I'd like to actually hear if you have, and not just have it be a hypothetical question.
We drove around the neighborhoods. We did not visit any of the institutions.
Okay, had you would have seen there are many mobility challenges in that area. I'm angry about this. I think you have a moral and ethical obligation to do the right thing here. I'm not opposed to clean energy. I understand it. I'm fine with it. But putting a facility like this in a populous area where there are families, a nursing home with our elderly, have we not learned anything from the Fall River incident with the nursing home? Other states have learned the hard way about the safety of these facilities. They're implementing new regulations for greater distance setbacks. We've heard already that there is a current proposal under review in Massachusetts. Why is this not being considered? Why are we not learning from other states who've had catastrophic fires and evacuations? I would plead, again, strongly believing that there is a moral and ethical responsibility here. How will you keep my family safe? How will you protect my property values? How do we not have any safety plan in place? How do you even consider approving such a thing until we learn how you can protect us? Thank you.
Sam Lambert. Maureen De Palma.
Good evening. I'm Maureen De Palma, D-I-P-A-L-M-A. And I'd like to say good evening to the members of the committee and all the concerned citizens that are here tonight and that are sitting through this presentation for a very good reason. And I'm sure that that reason is the same as mine. We do not want this battery situation in Tewksbury, and we certainly do not want it on Hillman Street or anywhere near it. I live at 1316 Emerald Court, which is 540 feet from this site. I work at 36 Hillman Street, which is 40 feet from this site. In fact, my office is on the second floor in that building, and I did see a group of people standing outside talking, and I did see Mr. Rinn there today, this afternoon, around 2 o'clock, and I'm assuming that it was you people that were there. So you've seen how close everything is. I did take a picture of you all standing there, and you could see I'm right across the street. I'm literally 40 feet away. And that is one of the 6 buildings that are over there. Those 6 buildings are owned by myself and my partner, Dennis Sheehan, and we have many renters over there that are excellent, excellent tenants. Some of them have been there for as long as 30 years. We have a variety we have contractors, we have cabinet makers, we have electricians, we have an auto body shop, a machine shop, a potty rental company, a fitness factory, and we also have a very large bus that belongs to the state of Massachusetts in one of those bays over there. It's this huge, enormous bus that they use for transporting SWAT teams or other personnel that may have to go somewhere in a hurry. So I'm wondering if this goes in, are those tenants going to remain there? As I said, some of them have been there for many, many years and have a very successful business that has been operating out of that location. And these buildings are kept in pristine order. Believe me, my partner rides around every single day, and they don't call him the yard Nazi for nothing, making sure that everything is kept neat and clean. Just to give you a little bit of information, I'll go quickly. On the property that this is proposed to be, we had cows grazing there not too many years ago, around the late 1980s. And it's property that my husband had bought because we had started a construction business and we needed a place. We were doing everything out of our home. We needed a place for the equipment that he was buying and for a place to maintain that equipment. So he started buying property. And that's how we started to buy all the property that is on Hillman and the other streets surrounding it. And there was a large piece of land next to the wetlands that he thought, well, we're not going to be able to do anything on this property because it's wet there, it's right next to the wetlands. So he decided, he was really a farmer at heart, and he decided that he was going to raise some cows there. So he got a cow, 2 cows at a bowl, and it was not too long, and we ended up with 14 cows. So it was really very enjoyable to look out the window of the office, and you saw all these cows grazing. But it was next to the railroad tracks, too, and the railroad company, where they weren't happy with the cows sometimes going near the railroad tracks. So that's kind of the history of that. The next part is a little bit sad, very sad, because my husband very suddenly passed away in 1990. And after that happened, the government, like they do, wanted their share of everything that my husband had worked so hard to build up all those years. And so I had to come up with money. And in order to do that, I had to sell some of the property. And it was very difficult to take care of all these cows by myself. So that's the property that I decided that I would sell. So I did that, and it went to a trucking company in New Jersey who put up the buildings that are currently there. They stayed there for several years, and then they left, and they sold it to the Brothers family, that is the current owner. So I'm sure there are people that wish that the Brothers family still continued to own it and did not decide to make a deal with these people. I am not against lithium batteries and clean energy, not at all. It is the coming thing, and it is something that we need. We just don't need it in that location. It is too close to everything, as you've heard everybody get up here and say how close it is and the population that is involved. It is just not the place for it to go. And it certainly is going to change my life. I think when Mr. Capone came up and he said there is one person with 6 buildings over there that is in a panic, yes, I was in a panic when I first heard of it. But now that I see the support that everybody is giving to each other to stop this from happening, and hoping that everything that they are saying you will absorb and decide that everybody that got up to speak made sense, and that you will not approve this to go in that particular location. So that's all I'm asking, that you please consider not doing this in this location. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because they're together and then sign number.
Wait, yeah. Please come.
Thank you so much. Good evening, and thank you for the time. My name is Sam Lambert, Lambert. I'm here representing the membership of the Massachusetts Sierra Club. We are headquartered at 50 Federal Street in Boston. We do speak today in favor of the Hillman Energy Center. Battery storage projects of this scale are necessary for grid reliability and to ensure the sustained retirement of expensive and polluting peaker plants. We also recognize that with the development of unfamiliar and evolving large-scale technology, concerns, including safety and public health, are natural and should be addressed with factual, direct, and sustained communication with the community and its representatives. I can attest that I personally felt confident enough in this technology that I spoke in favor of a similar size project less than a mile from my own parents' house earlier this year. Our energy costs and environmental health depend on the deployment of grid-scale battery projects like Hillman. Lithium-ion batteries have become a part of our daily life, on our homes, on our roads, and in the cell phones in our pocket. Battery technology and safety has evolved substantially, And I realize, however, that nothing in my comments will alleviate the real concern I hear in this room, but I do believe facts can, and that the company should continue listening and dialogue in a transparent and methodical manner. We also recognize that due to limited siting availability in densely developed eastern Massachusetts, only a handful of communities will be host to battery storage projects that will benefit residents and taxpayers across the region, ratepayers across the region. We're sensitive to what is asked of communities when infrastructure such as battery storage facilities are housed in a community. Community benefits agreements, above and beyond tax revenue and mitigations, are critical tools that provide the greatest benefit for these host towns and cities, and we urge facilitated and transparent conversations to develop the most impactful agreement that allows for specific and relevant benefits for the host community and its most impacted residents. We recommend incorporating an accountability provision with regular agreed upon reporting and an open line of communication between the town, the residents, and the developer for the duration of operations. We thank you for your time.
Dennis Sheehan.
My name is Dennis Sheehan. I live at 88 Emerald Court. And yes, Maureen DePalm, as she said, is my partner. So one of the concerns I have is that my mother lives at 88 Emerald Court with me. She's blind, walks with a walker, as many of other people here do. And the other question, you people were there today, correct? On the rendering, you saw all the nice little picture and stuff. I didn't happen to see the little house that I own there, 40 feet away, which, in fact, my tenant is here, I believe. Sandy, if you're here, stand up, please. You know, 40 feet, something happens. I would say he's a dead man, wouldn't you? And, of course, we've got the Great Swamp. It's over 300 acres. A lot of animals would die. But a lot of things nobody else knows. When I went for a permit one day, I went to the retired building inspector, and he showed me a picture of the aquifer, underground aquifer, that goes from our buildings, the site where you want to put that in, right to the state hospital, the aquifer. And the state hospital is on a well. So, boy, there's some troubles there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Seni?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board and staff. My name is Christopher Seni. That's spelled S-E-N-I-E. I live at 101 Moss Lane in Brewster, which is not here in town. It's down on the Cape. I'm a land use attorney. I've been a land use attorney for more than 40 years. Most of that work has been before planning boards, zoning boards of appeals, and conservation commissions. I have appeared before your board once with one matter. That was Park City Wind. And I came to appreciate that your board also does good land use regulation and deliberation in the context of that matter. We didn't agree on everything, but I appreciated the care that you took and how thoroughly you went through the various aspects of that application and considered conditions to be attached to it. That is the land use process. I know that the local land use process works very well. It's something I'm very proud to have been part of for all these years. Nobody does this better than a zoning board of appeals or a planning board. But your state agency charged with making these difficult decisions about where an energy facility should go does excellent work. At that time, every one of your matters had two docket numbers, EFSB and DPU, Department of Public Utilities. That's because in the one case I handled and in the 6 or 7 other decisions I've read as I prepared in that case, the DPU had authority to grant a waiver from local zoning, and your board had the authority to grant
a certificate, which is basically a permit for the project. Those were joined. The adjudicatory hearing dealt with them both, so the same evidence was being considered for both of those decisions. I am concerned about the Climate Act and what it may have unintentionally done, and I think it may be that it has injured quality land use deliberations even by your board. What is before you now is an application to waive local zoning regulations, not to grant a permit. And I have researched this, and I am not convinced that there will ever be a petition for a certificate submitted to your board on this project. You may only see this request to waive the local zoning bylaws. If you waive them, the boards that I know can do a good job, Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Board, will have no jurisdiction. The Climate Act seems to have, in an interest to shorten permitting periods and make this quicker and easier, perhaps eliminated any careful land use deliberation and decision making. Because if your board doesn't have a petition for a certificate, you're not doing the full job of reviewing this. I know, Mr. Green told me at a meeting on Monday night, that this adjudicatory hearing will be robust, but it is only a request to waive local zoning. It is not a permit application. And if you don't give a certificate, if this board doesn't give one, and your decision to waive local zoning has removed the local authority to do so, no one is going to look at land use from the perspective that it should be looked at. What are the potential adverse impacts? What are the benefits? What conditions could we impose to make sure this can be reconciled in the location where it's planned? And I'm deeply concerned about what the Climate Act has done. In one fell swoop, it may be taking powers away from local agencies and powers away from this board. My client, who you just met, Maureen DePalma and Dennis Sheehan, they own properties that wrap around the project site. We will be filing a petition to intervene. We hope that that's viewed favorably and that we become parties in this matter. I do understand there will be an adjudicatory hearing. We will participate actively in that. Just to mention two things of concern when we get there. You have a noise study in front of you prepared by the applicant's consultant, Epsilon. You remember from Park City Wind, I was troubled that sound power levels had been reduced in order to make the model work. Here we have something even worse from the same acoustical engineering firm. Where the sound power levels are entered, they have blocked it out and said confidential. They don't plan to give you the sound power levels. I'm aware of another application either coming to you or already on your desk from the same engineering firm marking sound power levels confidential. When people go to buy a car, miles per gallon is just a test result, and it is revealed. The sound power rating of a piece of equipment that can make noise is just a test result. It is not proprietary. It has to be revealed. So in this case, we've gone from Park City Wind, where they were manipulated in order to achieve the result, to this case where they're now being hidden. And I think this is inappropriate. This is more a matter for the adjudicatory hearing, and I will take it up at that point. The last thing quickly, National Fire Protection Association 855 is no quality setback regulation. It's very inadequate. Thank you.
Thank you. John McCusker.
Okay, John McCusker, it's spelled M as in Mary, C-C-U-S-K-E-R, 22 Whited Avenue. Good evening. If I were to drive from my house to the site, it's approximately 2.6 miles. But since water seeks the path of least resistance, I had to rethink that distance geographically. And when I drew a straight line from my house to the site, give or take a couple hundred yards, it's about a mile. And that knowledge would prevent me probably, if there were ever any kind of contamination due to a large fire, digging an artesian well for me would be probably put it all in jeopardy. I wouldn't do it. Not to mention the hundreds of people in town that already have wells that might be rendered unusable due to water contamination. Now, I did a little digging on the Mass website. The sitting board, these are the names I have. Rebecca Tepper, James Van Nostrand, Elizabeth Mahoney, Bonnie Heipel, Joseph Bonfilio, and Greg Watson. Is that information accurate?
I believe that's may not be the most current configuration of the siting board, but they are all either members of the governor's cabinet.
My real question is, would they be, who's the actual making the decisions? These people or somebody else?
The siting board members are the ones who make the decision. We work as staff for that board.
Okay. And none of them are here tonight, I'm assuming?
That's correct.
The people that would be making the decision
That's correct.
aren't here?
That's
Okay.
correct.
What I would like to do, I would save some of my comments for the written version, since I don't want to take to task people that are not here to defend themselves. But I would like to end with one quote in regards to Bonnie Heipel, if she is still a member. This was reported by Annie Jones of the Tewksbury Patch on March 13th of 2023, when Bonnie was set up to be the commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection. This is a quote from Governor Healy. Quote, as commissioner, Bonnie Heipel will be focused on protecting our residents and our most precious resources from harmful contaminants and threats of changing climate. We're thrilled to welcome Bonnie to the Healy-Driscoll administration. I hope that the people who are actually considering this will keep that phrasing, protecting our residents and our most precious resources from harmful contaminants. I would like to make sure that that phrasing is in the forefront of their thinking as they decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Marie Robitali. Hi.
Thank you. My name is Donna Robitaille, R-O-B-I-T-A-I-L-L-E. I live at 527 Shawshene Street. I rise this evening to be opposed to this project. I agree with everything I've heard tonight from people that have stood in opposition. I feel bad about the appearance that we might be divided and conquered with our own town hall. I feel that maybe the state process that is very open, our town tried to do it by Tewksbury.gov. All the information is there. I'm thrilled that the comment period is open till the 24th, and maybe some way the voice of the people through the town hall could actually, they could deliver that voice through maybe some comments that they heard tonight or that they are receiving. Because I think they are being heard, but I think it's, in my own mind, I feel it's, the plan is part of a process that's going through town hall, facilitating, it's like the process is designed to facilitate the progression of the plan. So everybody's doing their job. I haven't really been able to, can't read a speech, I'm too upset. somebody said they haven't slept, they live there. For 5 months, I've been doing that, wondering, say something, do something. I'm not making much sense right now. I'm too upset. I'm very concerned, but everything I heard, starting with our state representative, groundwater contamination, Tewksbury, we are the best. You can see, we go big. Everything, no matter which side anybody's on, they get together. We have a police station, brand new schools, beautiful, everything's nice, the library. When it comes time to it, everybody sticks together from both sides. We've accomplished and grew in all these years since I've been a kid, but we also have a history. We are a Superfund cleanup site in Tewksbury. It cannot be, it's part of our history, but it's also something that's ongoing. And it's a contradiction to say to sites, put something there when that is directly, if God forbid something happened, water contamination is real. There's enough there's documentation, the groundwater flow, Sutton Brook, and we're already, it's a very sensitive, not subject, it's sensitive, the wetland, everything about it. I'm sorry I'm falling apart. I didn't do very well, but I feel that we are sincerely being listened to, and I do think our Board of Selectmen and the town manager, even though I'm very frustrated myself, I do feel that somehow this is going to come together, and the voice that makes sense, not what I'm saying, I'm going in circles, but I've heard a lot of people make sense tonight. Please listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Kucher or Crutcher?
Hi, good evening. It's Christine Crutcher, C-R-U-T-C-H-E-R. I live at 1975 Middlesex Street in Lowell, but I'm a former Tewksbury resident that lived in the neighborhood at 11 Old Boston Road, and my husband's worked in town for 30 years. I come today as a volunteer from 350 of Greater Lowell, which is a climate action and climate justice group. I actually found out about this meeting from the Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance advertisements on Facebook, otherwise known as Mass Fiscal. The top donor to Mass Fiscal is the Fiscal Partners Incorporated. Fiscal Partners is a 501c6, which means that it gets most of its funding from undisclosed dues-paying members. According to a report in the Boston Globe, in 2017, Fiscal Partners made grants of over $400,000, but since the funders of Fiscal Partners are not disclosed, these donors can fund Mass Fiscal while remaining undisclosed via Fiscal Partners. So we don't know the donors to Mass Fiscal, but we do know that they're board members and staff members, and who are they? They include a failed Republican state auditor and congressional candidate, a Republican town committee chair, ex-Heritage Foundation, a member of the American Institute for Economic Research, an organization whose accomplishments include spreading disinformation about COVID during the pandemic, and who prints climate change denial propaganda, including articles such as Brazilians should keep slashing their rainforest. Mass Fiscal is a right-wing dark money organization. They don't care about the community, and they don't care about the truth. They care about protecting their financial interests. That is the only reason why they are involved with trying to stop this project. It's not about the impact on the neighborhood or the wetlands. It's about their pocketbooks. I don't know if this is the right location for this project, but I do know that climate change is a serious threat to our community. The community has a right to know the truth and the facts. We have a responsibility for our future generations to build the correct infrastructure to support a sustainable and livable planet. Thank you.
Mary Dunleavy. Joe Lyons. Don Sheehan.
I'm actually reading this on behalf of someone whose child is in the hospital. So for Nicole Mercer, M-E-R-C-E-R, and she lives at 307 Astle Street. 307 Astle Street. I am an air pollution scientist and a mom of 4 children living here in Tewksbury. I believe that the location of this battery storage facility poses a danger to vulnerable members of our community. If a fire were to occur, a toxic plume of hazardous gases and particulate matter could easily reach a transport area that includes several schools, residential facilities where elderly and disabled people live. I believe it's our community's responsibility to protect these vulnerable populations from this risk, as the health effects of air pollution, both acute and chronic, are well documented. Additionally, the proximity of this proposed facility near the Great Swamp, a wetland that is critical for flooding mitigation and an important conservation area for native species, would be devastated by soil and water contamination should a fire or other disaster erupt. Thank you.
Al Mancini.
Good evening. Al Mancini, M-A-N-C-I-N-I, 15 Kenneth Lane. So I'm not going to rehash everything you've heard. It was stated very eloquently, but I couldn't help myself. My wife will tell you I just need to talk. I'm sorry, you know. My thing is this. I've lived in Tewksbury for 22 years, and it's not the town I moved into. And I believe that a lot of what's happening here, unfortunately, is because of the reasons that have been brought up. Like, my question to you is this. Why Tewksbury? Like, why? Now, before anybody says anything, I'm not saying that because I don't want it in my backyard, because I do believe, much as the young woman that spoke earlier, I do believe that this is important. It is. I'm not saying that. But the idea is that the location, okay, now you took a quick tour, but anybody who lives in Tewksbury will tell you that going near Main Street most hours of the day is a bad idea. It takes you a half an hour to go from one side of Tewksbury to the other. And unfortunately, that's at 3 o'clock in the morning. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, it basically what it comes down to is the logistics of this town. I don't know where the information came from, and I'm not saying that anybody, I'm not going to say anything untoward. I'm saying that logistically, if you look at anything that's happening in this town, you're going to have a hard time getting around, okay? Let alone if something happens. Now, I get it. The chances of something like this happening are very microscopic. But the truth is this. Think about, I don't live at Emerald Court. I don't. But I do have a kid that goes to the Ryan. And I can just imagine what it would be like if something happened. And you got to go and you got to scramble and you got to get, and everybody is going the same way. The roads can't handle it now, let alone if there's panic. Now, my point is that I understand. I don't want you to think that I'm just saying this because I'm a Tewksbury resident. Okay, I'm not going to say that because I'm a Tewksbury resident. I'm saying it's because legitimately it's something that needs to be thought through. It needs to be thought through further. Whether they were putting it in Salem, New Hampshire, or it needs to be thought through, because at our point in time, we don't have the safety to deal with this if something goes wrong. And when you look at all these young folks here, sitting here, right? Think about what you've been said. Some of them can't get around. So pardon, you're sitting ducks. because they can't get around. And that's the thing. Now, if this was your brother, sister, mother, aunt, uncle, grandmother, think about that. Just think about it, because biblical is to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And what would you do if any of these fine folks here were your grandparents or your mother or your father, and they were living next to this? Would you want this next to your house? And I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be no. But again, I'm not saying this, I don't want it in Tewksbury, I don't want it in Tewksbury. I just want it somewhere safe. And I'm going to honor this young man, and I'm going to pay attention to his sign. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stephen or Steffi Pelrine? Robert Fobel? Could be Fowler. I think the pen was running out of ink.
I see you smiling up there because you know I'm one of the last persons to sign, right?
So far.
That's good. When I'm done, we can go home. It would be easy for me to say, oh, I'm sorry. My name is Robert Fowler, 78 Emerald Court, Tewksbury, Mass. Fowler. Got that. I have quite a long page, list of pages here, but I've been erasing them as time went on. I don't like redundancy. All I want to say is, I told you who I am, but I don't want this site in our town. I've lived in this town for 72 years. No, I wasn't born here, so I'm older than that. And as I said, I have a history in this town. I spent 34 years on the fire department, so I know something about what we're talking about. I spent 8 years on the Conservation Commission, so I know about contamination. I spent 40 years on the Planning Board, so I know what the planning and zoning is for, and it wasn't for this. I could probably stop right now, because you know my opinion and you know what I feel. Let me just finish. I'm going to finish with the last page I wrote. If I may. And you see, you won't have to put up your card. In closing, I and my family, plus 200 families, enjoy where we live in Emerald Court. We moved here because of the style and condition and location of the over 20 plus years, for the 20 plus years, and enjoy the feeling and looks of our homes and the manner to which they were built and maintained. To this day, they're the same way they were 24 years ago, I believe, right, Maureen? That is about all I want to say. I wrote all day here, and I don't have to say a word. But one of the gentlemen, that gentleman right there, said some important things. One of the best one is, if your folks lived here, would you want this built? I know I wouldn't, and I'm living here. Thank you very much for your attention. We appreciate it.
Greg Mann.
My name's Greg Mann, M-A-N-N, 6 Monroe Circle. Everybody talks about how long they've been here. I've been here all my life, and it's 68 years. I am a plastics engineer. I worked 21 years with solvents and VOCs, and 23 years with reactions, bases, and acids. So I know something about, I ended my career as senior research associate. First thing I want to say is before one shovel of dirt is moved, a evacuation plan, a manufacturing plan, a business plan, a safety plan has to be in place. When I worked, that's what we did. You do not say, oh, we'll go back and get it, or we'll do that, because it never happens. Okay? I have 3 pages of stuff, and everybody's done their homework so well that it's all been taken care of, so I'm going to be jumping around a little bit. This is a new process, new technology. They don't even really understand how to extinguish the stuff. What they do is basically, it is not a fire, it's a runaway reaction. They douse it with water until it cools down, and then the fire goes out. It also has the very nasty proposition that what it does is it likes to reignite itself. We talked about 2 incidences in California. One of them, they put it out in 30 hours, and they thought they were all set. It reignited and it ran for 5 more days. So it's not something that's really understood. Now, when these reactions occur, they produce a lot of byproducts. They create heavy metals. They create VOCs. They create toxic gases. The health department already talked about that, so I won't go too far into everything. But one of the main things that is made is called hydrogen fluoride. It's fatal. I repeat, fatal at low concentrations. You have heart attacks, you have strokes. It's toxic, it's also corrosive, and it's toxic, corrosive, and it can cause blindness. If you don't want to look at it, you don't have to, but on the MassGov site, it has these reactions and shows what happens to people. It's very graphic, but if you really want to know what could happen, you can take a look there. The fires are 3 times hotter than a gasoline fire. So you got to realize that there's a lot of heat. It goes up to 5,000 degrees F. Okay, so it really, and it takes to put out a normal gasoline fire, it's 2,000 gallons. For one of these things, it's 20,000 gallons. So it's not the same thing. When you think of a fire, it's not the same thing. Now, when you have, so now you have this large amount of water that's being dumped onto this thing, and it's going to run off somewhere, and it's going to run off into the Great Swamp, and it's going to carry all these byproducts with it. You know, there's the heavy metals, the gases, and all this stuff. And one of the unfortunate things that happens with this hydrogen fluoride is when water hits it, it becomes hydrofluoric acid. It's classified a weak acid, which everybody says, oh, isn't that great? But it has the very nasty thing that it permeates skin really easily.
and people don't know that they've been exposed to it. And it's nasty stuff. And what it does, it gets into your system and it starts dissolving your bones. So it's something that a lot of doctors don't know about. I worked with it. My boss was very strict with me on how to handle things and what I had and everything like that. She told me a story about somebody who fell into a vat of this stuff. They got him out. They washed him down. They thought it was all right. They gave him the treatment at the hospital. They were told what they had to do. The doctor stopped the treatment after 7 days because of the fact that it is very excruciating. And after he stopped, he said, "Oh, the guy's fine. The guy was happy. Everything was great." He died 2 days later. So it's something that even normal doctors don't know about. So you got to be careful with a lot of this stuff. I know I'm getting a little. I'll give you a couple of right now the fires, which are actually reaction in the UK, they're increasing by 46%. Toronto, 162%. Montreal, 195%. Right now, a lot of communities are putting on a moratorium on these things because they don't really understand how these work. So all this thing is happening, and they don't have really control over it. One of the lists I got here of, okay, quick, I'll make it quick. How these things failed: internal short circuits, physical damage, overcharging, manufacturing defects, metal particle contamination in the production, poor electrical alignment, inadequate separation, substandard construction, inadequate staff training, insufficient risk assessments for battery storage, lack of specialized fire detection. And I really don't think this is, there has been two of these major things that have happened within the last a year and a half. So it does happen. And I'm really afraid that, for our first responders are going to go in there and all this stuff is going to be floating around in the air, and then people are saying, they're going to, oh yeah, shelter in place. That's ridiculous. It's just not something that we should have or something we want in our community. And I thank you for your patience.
So, Mr. Mann was the last of the people who registered to speak. Is there anyone else who did not have the opportunity? Please come up then.
Ray Adams, ADAMS, 1203 Emerald Court, Tewksbury, Mass. I've lived in Tewksbury since 1965. I even knew Bob Fowler. The reason I say that, I lived on Rogers Street, I lived on Foster Road, I lived on Green Meadow Drive, and now I live at Emerald Court. I say this because regardless of where I live in Tewksbury, this thing is unsafe, and it really concerns me. There's a lot of things that have been said tonight that I believe 100%. I think there's too many things that are unknown about this. And if you look at 3 Mile Island, you look at Chernobyl, you look at the gas explosion in North Tewksbury that was behind my house on Rogers Street, these things weren't supposed to happen. I think there's another point that I'd like to make is a gentleman asked earlier, because this is a strategic location, who's financing this? Well, this is financed by a company in Norway that has access to our grid that can shut down the east coast of the United States if they feel like it. You don't know who's supporting them. Is it Russia? Is it China? I don't know. But when you look at these things, You've got a number of names. You've got Hillman, you've got East Point, then you've got Equinor in Norway. So who's really responsible for it? I'm 85 years old. I'm a disabled veteran. I don't These are facts that I've seen people digging for months to pull together. And the state and the town has ignored these things. Had 2 discussions with the town manager. Information was not accurate coming from the town manager. So where do we go from here? And unfortunately, I don't know where this goes, because this board tonight may be part of the people that are making the decision. I hope so. But I'm very disappointed in the town wanting to put it where it is, because it's in a dangerous location. I think we've got to move ahead with safer energy, so I don't necessarily disagree with the background on it. I disagree with where it's being, and I hope you folks understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Durant. I live at 69 Breckenridge Road in Tewksbury here in town. I've been a resident of Tewksbury for 33 years. I'm a retired firefighter for 33 years for the city of Somerville. In my time as a firefighter of the city of Somerville, we really didn't come across this lithium battery problem that we have today. But I've heard stories, and I've heard stories from Somerville. It took them 4 times to put out a car that was on fire from a lithium battery. 4 times. It's not pretty. I'm the guy that runs in the building when you people are running out. Okay? You see that laptop? Every one of you have a laptop in front of you. When that goes on fire in a school, we evacuate the entire school. So don't tell me it's not dangerous, and don't tell me it ain't gonna happen. 2 planes crashed into the towers in New York and took down those towers. Those towers weren't supposed to go down. Well, they did. So don't tell me that it can't happen, because it can happen. And it happened to a number of my brothers that were in those towers. And I don't want to see it happen here to my brothers in Tewksbury. This is not the place for this site. Put it someplace else. Okay? Put it in their backyard.
Mark Tortorici, that's Tortorici, 390 Kendall Road. There's been a lot of talk here tonight about this facility being part of the Clean Energy Initiative. So I have a question, if the company will be willing to answer it. I was wondering what percentage they expected of the energy that's going to be generated, that's going to be stored in these batteries, that's going to be truly clean energy, which would be water, air, and sun, versus fossil fuel energy, which would be things like coal and natural gas. So even though the battery facility itself would seem like it's part of the Clean Energy Initiative, the actual energy that's going to be stored there, I'm wondering if the company can let us know what their expectation is of the percentage of renewable versus fossil fuel. Folks, answer that.
Mr. Kaplan, would you?
It's
almost impossible to calculate the exact percentages. I do know that in Massachusetts, these batteries are charging typically at the lowest price times, which is typically when solar and wind are producing electricity.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving the answer for what you do know. I guess I wanted to offer another perspective to folks that one of the benefits that's being pushed is that this is really part of clean energy. The majority of energy still produced is from coal and natural gas fired plants. So there's a high likelihood that the majority of energy that is going to be stored here is created by fossil fuels. So I just wanted to give that perspective to folks, just something else for them and the board to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
My name is Bob Schleicher, Schleicher, 74 Emerald Court. We've talked about something that we're told is not going to happen, the worst catastrophe, but I'm just wondering if there has been any requirement from Hillman Energy Center LLC. I emphasize the LLC because we know what that happened. Is there any bond requirement, any monies in escrow, or if the worst happens, is the town of Tewksbury left with the millions and millions of dollars in cleanup? That's all I want to ask.
As opposed to part of the host community agreement, it's being negotiated currently with the town. There will be a decommissioning bond or similar mechanism that will be put in place to deal with any sort of site cleanup post project. The amount has not been determined yet, but it is being negotiated with the host community agreement in negotiations with the town. And when it is finalized, it will be made public and voted on at town meeting.
Who would approve that bonding? Would that go through capital management at the state to approve the bond issuer? Capital asset management. Wouldn't they be the one that would approve the bond issuer, AAA rating, whatever? No?
I don't know that. I don't know if the company knows that.
Well, I'm trying to say is the state has certain people that they only let issue bonds. I would hope it would be one of those companies that had the ratings that would be acceptable to the state. But that's not why I came up here. I just talk a lot. I'm interested in the, John Quinn, QUINN. I'm interested in the infrastructure that's going to support the monitoring from out of state, seeing there'll be no personnel in this state. As to the stability, I mean, the Texas electric grid doesn't have the greatest reputation in the world. If you remember Mr. Cruz, Senator Cruz leaving for Mexico, well, Texaco was down when Texas was down. And so do they have a redundant system to keep it going? If Texas went down, it would be monitored in Colorado or Virginia or someplace else? Or do they have an uninterrupted power supply that would kick in so that there would be somebody monitoring that facility and it wouldn't go unattended? I'll get out of your way.
The current plan for this facility would be to be monitored remotely in Texas, as that is where our current operating projects are located. However, that has not been finalized as a part of this project. In the case of an emergency, that facility would have some sort of backup power, I'm sure, to make sure that the facility is maintaining its connection to the facility at Hillman Street.
Who in the state would verify that and sign off on it, that there was a redundancy in place to take care of this? Because if that monitoring goes down and there's nobody here to check it, that's a big problem. So somebody can't just say, we'll have it there. Somebody in the state has to verify it's there, or you could have a real big problem. Or we could have a real big problem.
So I think unless there's anyone else waiting, that we are concluded. Please come down to the podium.
Hi, good evening. Ooh, boy, I guess I don't have to worry about being that loud. My name is Dana Boyd, B-O-Y-D. I live on 69 Summer Street, about a half a mile away from the proposed site. I've been a resident for about 3 years now. My wife grew up here. How do I start this? All my eggs are in that basket in the home. I put a lot into it to close on the home. Any disaster, any unforeseen event will really set me back. I know there's a lot of other members in my generation that are in the same boat, just trying to be homeowners. Throw in a disaster event. What then happens then? I don't know. That's a rhetorical question. My question is infrastructure for a disaster event. Our town actually got a taste of that about, 3 years ago, at the hockey rink. I think that some other town members will remember that. The gas leak, chemical gas leak at the hockey rink. That was kind of a failure of response. There was unanswered questions. There was, what do we do? Where do we go? Shelter in place, don't shelter in place, evacuate, don't evacuate. All in what? A single lane road on East Street? It was utter confusion. And the only line of communication was over Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg's propaganda machine. Yeah, hooray, great. After that scenario came our Code Red system, and that's great. That's a wonderful system to have to let me know my trash day is delayed a day for a holiday. Thank you. Right? So as I said, we've gotten a taste of that. Our little town, our beautiful little town, is not ready to evacuate miles and miles of something. We're not ready to lose conservation land. We're not ready to be drinking poisoned water from our wells, which are right there, some of which are right there. I think that's a big thing. We're not there yet. Another thing I do want to bring up is lithium. Huge topic. Surprise. Is the concept of, zero emissions. Lithium is not zero emissions. Lithium has to be mined from somewhere. Lithium has to be refined somehow. And I guess that's for the development company to answer is, where do those battery cells come from? What third world country has been eliminated in strip mining? And I'll leave you guys to answer that with one other note. is one, we have the opportunity to do something really innovative.
That's fine, I can just yell.
No.
It's for the audience at home, too.
Thank you very much. That works. I really didn't want to yell. Thank you. Batteries. It doesn't have to be lithium. It doesn't have to be a volatile battery that likes to catch on fire and stay on fire for days. Batteries can be made out of citric acid and conductor leads. Batteries can be alkaline, lead acid batteries, or nickel metal hydride, although, also difficult to mine. But citric acid is in our food. It comes from genetically modified mold. We can produce that with a lower impact than lithium. Lithium likes to catch on fire. Citric acid, not so much. We eat it. Or other alkalines. There's so many other innovations in batteries that doesn't have to rely on lithium. I think that's about it. I mean, I do leave with the question is, where do these batteries come from? Thank you.
Thank you. So right now, I'd like to thank everybody for participating tonight. I would like to remind you, you want to, please come down then, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Gail Stone. I'm 46 Troll Road in Tewksbury.
You can use it out of the,
It's all right,
the
I'll
holder
just leave
if
it.
you want.
I live on Troll Road, not too far from, I'm on the Old Boston Road end. And that area is simply impossible to put anything there. You've heard all these people tonight over and over and over again. It's really a no-brainer. It really is. I don't know who our town people are here that want this in this town. I don't know if it's another company from who knows where. Could be anywhere, George Soros, any of those billionaires. But you have to take into consideration that these are people here with families, with kids, like you. You all have children or other little children that you know, brothers, sisters. You have to take care of them. You don't put something that is that dangerous in this town, please. Not only that, 38 is a disaster. Someone mentioned it. I have to go on to 38. I go on to Troll Road, and I have to go onto the highway where there are sets of lights. It is the most dangerous spot at any time of the day, even early in the morning when I went to church. There's a car coming up, a car coming down, went right by the other car going down the street, almost hit somebody and would have killed them because they were speeding. And I've told the police, you can stand there morning, noon, and night and ticket people left and right and make them money, and our taxes would go down. Believe me, I'm not kidding. I've seen it. I've almost been hit many, many times. So you can't go when the light says green. You have to stop and you have to look both ways. You have to do that, or you're going to get killed. Believe me. This town, whatever happened, there's so much building, they are unable to take care of the roads. I live on Troll Road. It used to be a cow path. Do you know what it is now on a Friday night? There's like 2-mile traffic in my street in front of my house because you know why? They can't get out on the main road. Do you know why? Because at 5 o'clock at night, they let the green light go to the main street. They don't care about the side street. So they let that light just keep going and going so they could go straight. And then finally, when someone goes through, the light stops and lets the cars go through, but not that many. There's a big difference. I mean, I've been in Tewksbury all my life. Work, live, die in Tewksbury. I'm 81 years old, and I've seen a big difference. We have those wetlands, conservation land. They should be left alone. Nobody should get near them. The animals are dying. I've gotten up at 3 o'clock in the morning and had the mother, the father, and the 3 baby deers on my front lawn. And believe me, it's not a big front lawn. But I can go out there at night at any hour and see animals. They have no place to go because they're building all these big warehouses up by there. You must know. I don't know. If you haven't seen the land, I can't believe that you haven't gone up there to look. But that's what it is. And then you have those big 10-wheelers going by. Try to get out, have them come into the highway when you're going out. It's almost impossible. But you know what? Nobody cared. They let them do it anyway. People have to smarten up in this town. Nobody cares anymore. It's just the money, money, money. But if there's ever an evacuation, they'll never do it. There's only 2 roads, Trull Road and North Street, to take you out to the other side or to come to Tewksbury to 38. And those roads are already crowded now on a Friday or a Saturday. But I'm telling you, it's a no-brainer. Anybody that you listen to, everybody tonight, the same thing. It's a big, big problem in Tewksbury. There is no way you can put that lithium plant here. So please, whoever you have to talk to, let them know. I'll let them hear what went on tonight because it's a no-brainer. Sorry. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Hughes, Hughges. I reside at 1405 Shawshene Street in Tewksbury. I'll be brief. It's been a long night. I've listened for 3.5 hours, as you have as well. I have a question for you, Madam Chairman, to your board. How do you make a determination of where the proper location for a site like this is?
We don't pick the locations for proposed projects. We review projects that come to us looking for approval and assess the suitability of the project as designed at that particular site.
And how does the state quantify or compare the locations that are brought before you to other states within the country? Because I'll tell you what I did. When this first came about, and I heard about this back in March, I was recovering from prostate cancer. So I had a little bit of time to do a little research. And I called the county of Chesterfield, Virginia, because most of the development of these types of properties have happened in Virginia. So all kinds of economic incentives to do it. Most of these are created by LLCs, and you will find if you do your research or your bosses do their research, because they seem to be the ones who will vote on this, that they will find that they are LLCs that come out, do all the legwork, and then they're sold off to Dynergy or Dominion Energy or this energy or that energy company, right? That's how this works. That's what I've seen. I ask you and I implore you and your bosses who could not show up tonight, so I thank you for being here to take some of the heat, that they look at that. They look at it in the totality of the project, and they find out what is beneficial. If you look and you ask and you talk to those community development people down there, they will tell you most of these facilities in Virginia are on farmland that has been sold. There's not a resident within 20 miles of them. I've talked to the fire department people down there. You know how they put out a fire down there? They have open like almost hydrants that go into the side of the building, and the goal is to pump 500 gallons of water over it and flood the unit and hope the fire goes out. That's not achievable here in Tewksbury. They don't have the space there to get fire trucks down in there to try to do something like that. Out there in the open space, they have dikes, they have land that things flow, right? And then the utility company is responsible for taking a crane and lifting the burnt out shell up and moving it out and caring for all the hazardous waste that resides there after the fire and is contained in the soil and the barriers that they place under it to protect the land from it impeding into that. You're not going to have that luxury here in Tewksbury to do that. So I implore you again, make a few phone calls, have your bosses make some phone calls, talk to some other areas around the country on how they place these particular facilities so there's the minimal impact on the people that are around the areas. There's got to be open space, and I'm sorry if it costs the utilities a little more money to put out transmission lines, but public safety needs to be the top priority. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank everyone who was here tonight for participating. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Sue Boudreau, 55 Jefferson Road in Tewksbury.
You have to speak into the microphone.
It's Boudreau, okay? And I've been listening all night long, as you have. Bottom line is, the people from Tewksbury do not want this here. Put it out in the desert where it won't hurt anyone that's around it, but it doesn't belong in this community. The only people that have been for it were people that don't live here. It's that simple. People who live here and have families here don't want it. Please listen to these people. And Mrs. Stratus, I want to sign your petition. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everybody that comments and requests for participation are due Friday, October 24th, 2025. We welcome your input and questions. The information is very important to us in our review of a proposed project. If you have any questions relating to tonight's hearing or want a clarification of the Siting Board's review of this case or anything else related to this hearing, please email me at my email address, donna.sharkey@mass.gov. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight and for the comments and questions that you've offered regarding the proposed project. Thank you.